OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
7:30 this Tuesday morning. You're very welcome along to OTB AM. It's the Sports Breakfast Show from Off the Ball. We're with you every morning from 7:30 all the way through until 10, setting the agenda for whatever's happening in the world of sport, bringing you big name interviews and commentary, analysis and reaction to everything that has happened last night. We have a star-studded guest list for you today, and we're talking about all of the world's big sports stories. And Owen Sheehan is here with us, as he is every morning, from his lair in Kerry, where the broadband is good and the weather is fantastic.
The broadband really is good. That has been one of the real revelations of this lockdown, is that they didn't lie when they said fibre optic had made its way to Kerry. It has held up better than any of your broadband up above in Dublin, that's for sure.
Did you watch the interview last night?
No, I didn't. And this is not me being like, don't really care about all that sort of stuff. I think everybody has a general curiosity towards celebrities, and the royal family is obviously a great collection of celebrities. So I would have an interest in it, and I will watch it later. But no, didn't cut it for me on a Monday night. The
fall of the monarchy, you know, as it's slowly unpicked by a heroic young American woman, you're like, nah. There's some highlights. I need to see Monday Night Football's analysis of the defensive structure at Sheffield United and why they're going down this year.
That part of it I would be interested in for sure. Like I definitely don't think it's just this British thing that is happening and there's just a general curiosity about it. I obviously understand the wider implications of what's happening over the course of last night, but it is still largely celebrity culture that feeds into everybody's interest around this. Like I watched The Crown, for example. I absolutely love The Crown.
Right,
I love the historical aspect that is based in fact. But like the more I'm reading about what happened over the last couple of days, where I'm like, hold on a minute. The monarchy coming out saying that some parts of The Crown aren't true is the greatest double bluff of all time, because what's actually happening here is the parts of The Crown that are untrue are probably all the bits that paint the monarchy in a really nice way. That they're coming out saying, oh, no, we don't watch it because it's not based in fact. They love it. They love the picture that this show is depicting of everybody in Buckingham Palace, because it is largely a good picture of it. All the detail over the last couple of weeks would be like, hold on a minute, actually there is, not that you would have to have your eyes open this week or anything, but there is definitely a sense that the Crown has done great things for the monarchy, and actually if people believe that to be fact, then they've got too positive a view of what's actually been happening for the last 100 years.
I presume there's going to be a whole season on Prince Andrew. When they get to that bit, maybe people's eyes will be opened and we'll get to see. Let's move on from one crumbling empire to another crumbling empire, and the latest Agnelli, the great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandson of the original Agnelli. Obviously he deserves his position at the head of that great motoring family and football club. Is in charge of Juventus, and as a result of that, is on the board charged with organising what the future of European football is going to be like. And they've come up with a very easy to understand, not in any way complicated system that's going to be the saviour of European football. And I ask you, Owen Sheehan, with your giant brain, to unpack it for us.
It's the most European club football move ever to take up the Swiss system for a European competition. This is just beautiful from Andrea Agnelli. He knows exactly who he's playing to. First of all, to his bosses, not his direct bosses, but in a roundabout way, his bosses in Switzerland, by saying that they're going to use a system that was first developed in a chess tournament in Zurich over a century ago to actually form this new Champions League, which could come in as soon as next season. The expansion will be from 32 teams to 36 teams. So this is not your European Super League. This is going to coexist alongside your domestic leagues. So what is going to happen here is that each team who gets into this tournament will play 10 games against teams seeded in 4 different pots. But not everybody's going to play everybody in their groups, for example. It's kind of like the Champions Cup at the moment. And then basically the top 16 teams will qualify to the knockout stages, and away we go. So we wouldn't have our 32 teams drawn off into World Cup-like groups. It will be much different to that, and each team will play 10 games. So it's going to expand this a little bit, but necessarily the domestic leagues are going to have to contract a little bit.
I'm sorry. Go back.
Go on.
Before we get to the contraction of the... How do you tell which are the top 16 teams?
Because of their record.
And how do we know which record is better than... They go into the same table?
They do. So the top 16 teams in the table.
So there's going to be a
qualify for
table.
knockout stages.
There's going to
be one big table.
Even though I won't have played you, you won't have played anybody else, we're all three going to be in the same table.
That doesn't matter. You see, I'm Manchester United and you're Slavia Prague. I deserve to get a better, easier schedule than you do.
So you basically played 10 games to get through to the last 16, irrespective of what happens. And the top 10 clubs every year always make it into the top 16 clubs every year always make it into the round of last 16. Why don't we just play the round of last 16?
Wouldn't be against that. I would not be against the Champions League going to 32 full
Champions
knockout
only.
Because, yeah, like you could do that as well. Like the Champions League has thrown up some of the best sport we've had in the world over the past couple of years. So like Liverpool and Spurs and their comeback. Even like a couple of weeks ago, seeing Mbappe and Haaland in their coming to their pomp and wowing us all with what they can do against top class teams. That's the Champions League at its best. Nobody cares that much about the group stages. The only good story that really came out of the group stages in recent years was Atalanta, and like that was a real outlier.
Actually, there was one amazing group stages about 8 or 9 years ago, and a lot of crappy teams made it through to the round of last 16 and quarterfinals, and it was rubbish from that point forward. But there was great.
Kylian Mbappe's Monaco.
I can't even remember. It might have been a bit longer back. Like, wow, the Champions Group stages this year is sensational. It's lit. That'll give you an idea of what generation or what era that was, and then the rest of the tournament was rubbish, essentially.
Yeah,
it's like the World Cup. Whenever there's good matches early in the tournament, it means good teams are getting knocked out, and there's always like an easy way to victory for one of the superpowers. You don't. It's actually there's no need to. The Swiss system, is it going to work? I mean, we're obviously, pouring scorn on it here on, but is it going to work? Could it work? Could this actually? Is this madness so mad that maybe the European tournament will work?
Like what does work actually mean? Does it make the Champions League better? No, it doesn't.
What it means is that there won't be a European. We've managed to back ourselves into such a horrible corner that the low bar is that there won't be a European Super League breakaway where we're only ever watching Dortmund versus Spurs on a wet Tuesday night, and it's in an endless loop of Dortmund versus Spurs and Spurs versus Dortmund and Dortmund versus Spurs and Spurs versus Dortmund. And after a while, we were all like, nice to see Spurs versus like Villa, wouldn't it? Just for a change, or maybe Leeds. Could their stadiums are full, but that's essentially where it's this or it's a European Super League is what the European superpowers are telling us.
And it's a really good card to be able to play at this. It's not going to improve things. Like to make this happen as well, there's going to have to be a big push to reduce the Premier League size, basically. Like this isn't just an easy opt-in from the Premier League. Premier League will have to go down to 18 teams, more than likely. He spoke about them yesterday as well on Yelly and saying that their games, 53 games in an English domestic season, including cups, is just way too much. He points to Germany having 43, which is decent, and I presume he thinks that Italy is in a good enough place as well. But Agnelli, if you think that he is superior to the small clubs, well, that's not true. He is thinking for the small man in all of this, because he's talking about transfers between clubs. So is he going to protect your club from getting nabbed by a bigger club when it comes to like a young starlet? Well, no, he's not exactly going to do that. But if you're Barcelona and another club funded by massive oil money, for example, wants to offer over £100 million for your star, then that will not be allowed to happen. You will not be allowed to do that. However, if you are RB Leipzig and Bayern Munich come in for Dio Upamecano, then that's totally fine. But anything over £100 million between the big clubs, he is banning that. He is looking out for the little guy in all of this. So I doff my cap to Andrea Agnelli this morning.
I have no idea how they can do that legally or what kind of weird mechanism they might try and pull, but that's obviously a little bit of a sideshow. Hey, look at this other thing over here that we might do that might... Oh, no, we're not going to do that. We're just going to do this other thing that you weren't paying enough attention to because it's too complicated. It's to do with a chess tournament in Zurich, as you said, 100 years ago. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're interested in football, we'd like to hear from you and what you think of the new Swiss system and their convoluted league table, which miraculously will rescue the top 16 teams in European football and belch them into a knockout stage after 10 endless games. Where many of those matches will not actually be any good because, as Owen said, it'll be bad team versus good team. 087 180 180 is the number that we'd like to hear from you on. That's our WhatsApp number, or of course you can always tweet the show at OffTheBallAM is the specific Twitter handle of the show this morning. Now, I want to move on and talk about the Lions because, you know, the Lions are one of those brands that I'd say Irish people kind of forget about for 3.5 years, and then it's on and they're like mad into it for a little while. But maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe it is the be-all and end-all of a lot of rugby fans' conversations, and I know certainly the players are very interested in it because they get paid a whack of cash to go on the Lions tours, and also they get to test themselves against in training against their best peers, and then they play 3 tests in a very heightened atmosphere over a short period of time against one of the best teams in the world and Australia. And like, I can see why it would be a big deal for them. For us, I think in Ireland, we kind of like it. We're a little bit ambivalent about it because it leads with the word British, and there's all sensitivities around it. But in English rugby circles, it is, I would say, as important as the Queen, essentially. If you look at all the papers today, you know, you get an understanding of the hierarchy and the pecking order of English society. It is the Queen above all else. And what Harry and Meghan did to that poor woman yesterday, according to the English papers, is shocking. Shocking stuff. Piers Morgan walked off his own TV show this morning, by the way. That's how upset. Someone held him to account for the rubbish he was spouting yesterday. He walked off. Anyway, look, that's going to be a nice sideshow to distract us all from the COVID nightmare that we're living in. However, also helping will be the reaction from... I mean, I don't even know who this reaction is from, but apparently the Lions could save the Union. That's the actual Union that they brought into power by the active Union in the early 1800s, which bound and cleaved these islands all together for time immemorial, even though, like we all know, that there was a referendum for the Scots like 10 years ago that gave them the opportunity to break up that Union. And also, you know, the Good Friday Agreement essentially said that at some point, if there is a majority of people who think this way in Northern Ireland, they'll be able to leave the Union too. So anyway, the Union is essentially already broken, but not in the eyes of some people. This is Martin Ziegler and Alex Lowe's story in the back of the Times, the London Times, this morning. A bid by the British and Irish Lions for financial guarantees from the government for a home series against South Africa has won backing from ministers, Tory ministers, who think that it could be a uniting force for the United Kingdom now that Scottish independence is back on the political agenda. The Treasury had initially not been keen on the request to underwrite the unprecedented home series in case fans were not allowed into stadiums this summer. Treasury, like accountants, are like, well, you know, what? Give money for what? What? No. But the Tories, the ministers, are like, hang on a second, this could save the Union. There has been a significant shift in favour among members of the Cabinet of supporting matches that could be played in England, Scotland and Wales, and possibly Northern Ireland too. The sentence ends there and there's a new paragraph. Matches played in England, Scotland and Wales, and possibly Northern Ireland too. That's the end of it. The Lions have accepted there's no chance of playing in South Africa, as obviously that's not going to happen. Blah, blah, blah. So...
What a week. What a week for politicians in the United Kingdom. Westminster has woken up to the fact that sport might influence politics. Like somebody in the cabinet over there has watched Invictus one too many times during lockdown. They're like pointing at it like Matt Damon once upon a time in Hollywood, being like, we can do something with this. Matt Damon can play Boris Johnson. We can have the greatest sports meets politics story of all time, and we can conquer the world. We can save the Union. Like whoever came up with this story is sitting at home this morning with a map of Western Europe on their wall, and the title of it says the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland. This is the sort of person that we're talking about this morning. Like, I mean, their vision is of the Lions team being a union of nations who go out and fight for the honour of their crown and fend off evil forces like Oprah Winfrey interviews and things like that. This is the sort of vision that we are seeing on the back of the London Times this morning.
The English David McWilliams is cracking his knuckles going, just limber up here. I've got about 4 books coming out of this. There's actually nothing in the piece. There's no quotes, there's no comments that suggests that there's going to be something about the union. It's more about, like, it'd be really good to get people back into pubs and stadiums, and I can totally understand why you would want to do that, but I can't see the bit where it says that, you know, that it's actually going to save the union. Great headline, though, especially this morning when the Union has never seemed so under threat from outside sinister forces. That's certainly how it's being reported in all the newspapers. You go and buy loads of newspapers today and read it, and watch the interview tonight, and watch this. We've got a front row seat here for something that could potentially actually end up being quite interesting. OTB AM is live in association with Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. Phil Egan, good morning.
How are you doing, lads?
Chelsea, I told everybody to get on the Tuchel bandwagon about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and Jesus, I had no idea they were going to be this clinical, intelligent, like with that playing pool. Maybe we have some hope that it's not going to be Manchester City's world a la Celtic or Rangers or Juventus for the next 10 seasons, that maybe Chelsea will be able to stop them next year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, who would have thought that spending loads of money on really good players would give you a really good squad? But it turns out Thomas Tuchel knows what he's doing. They look a lot more organised than they did under Frank Lampard. Still, they're not a great watch at the moment. He's made them obviously a lot harder to beat. They haven't conceded a goal at Stamford Bridge in the league. So that's 5 home games, 5 clean sheets. First manager to do that in his first 5 Premier League games in the Premier League era anyway. But now it's a case of how can he get the best out of them going forward. So obviously tried Timo Werner and Kai Havertz basically as a front two at times last night, and Havertz was very good. Timo Werner, again, got himself into positions but just couldn't put the ball away. Most of the chances he got fell to him on his left foot and he just seemed to snatch at them. But people would say the fact that he keeps getting into those positions, eventually the goals will come. And think about it, this season obviously has been played behind closed doors. By the time the fans come back in, Timo Werner might have got a scoring touch back, and Chelsea fans will have never witnessed the Timo Werner, the misfiring Timo Werner. They'll be back going, this Timo Werner lad's unbelievable. He's a goal machine. And Kai Havertz would fall into that category as well, where they'll see the best of Kai Havertz. Obviously, he's had a few injuries.
He COVID.
Positive.
Yeah.
He COVID as well. But
Owen was making the point that he had a really bad version of COVID.
Yeah. It obviously, look, I'm fortunate enough I haven't tested positive for COVID, but certain people obviously get it more extremely than others. So, you know, a lot of people think just because they're elite athletes that they just get a few sniffles and that's it. But I know, for example, Jack Byrne talked about the effects that it had on him as well. So, yeah, it can affect different players in different ways. And there's no doubt that Kai Havertz is a very classy footballer. I certainly enjoy the way he dribbles the ball. Always just kind of feathers it with the outside of his left boot. And he just seemed to be really on song last night. And as one of the papers, I know when you go through them, one of the headlines is Kai's the limit. And you would imagine we have a lot of good stuff to see out of Kai Havertz and Timo Werner in particular as well. Yeah,
add in Pulisic, Mason Mount and a few others, and they've got one of the best collections of young players in world football at the moment. But more importantly, they have a grown-up in the room who is leading them forward, who is tactically astute, who understands exactly what he needs to do to win these games. And I would be surprised if Tuchel is not successful at Chelsea, and like very successful.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, he has a really talented squad, and obviously one of the first things he did when he came back in was he reverted back to the 3. Look, it was a formation that was so successful for Conte. Obviously, Sarri had played it as well, Lampard had played it as well at times, but Tuchel's gone in and just stuck to it, and it's favoured the likes of Marcos Alonso, who started last night as well. You know, he has options in midfield. He can obviously play N'Golo Kante for certain games. He left him on the bench. He obviously came on, but Jorginho and Kovacic, I'm a big fan of Kovacic. I think he's a very good player, and he falls into that category of, if he's so good, why did he leave Real Madrid? People think that if you are sold by Real Madrid, there must be something wrong with you. Not the case. Obviously, if you've ended up at Real Madrid, you're a very good player. So it doesn't obviously work out for it. Not everyone can play for Real Madrid or stay in the team. So, yeah, he's a really talented player. And just not conceding goals. I said, now it's a case of trying to make them more effective and clinical in the final third, but that will come. That was always going to be Lampard's problem as well at the start of the season. This is something that I remember Jurgen Klopp said about signing all these attacking players for Lampard, that he has to be able to knit them all into the team, and he couldn't do it. And Tuchel is still going to take a bit of time to do that. But yeah, he's spoken about it as well. He's like, we've handed Manchester City this league. Everyone has given City too easy a ride this season.
See,
So next season,
that's a really good thing for him to say, because he didn't do that.
absolutely.
Since he's got there's been no handing of anything to anybody apart from their asses to the teams that he's been beating. We got to move on, Phil. What else is happening in the world of sport?
Well, obviously, that win for Chelsea keeps them in fourth place. They're still on course for a top 4 finish, and I think it'd be a big surprise if they didn't go on and finish the job off. Now, West Ham stayed in touch. They're only 2 points behind Chelsea following their 2-0 win at home to Leeds. They also have a game in hand, so West Ham's still not out of it. But other than that, then you would think Leicester's win over the weekend probably has done enough just to keep them definitely on course to finish in the top 4, and in terms of what it would do confidence-wise as well. Another line, actually, I forgot to mention, coming out of that Chelsea and Everton game, was what Carlo Ancelotti said after the match about Seamus Coleman. Wasn't involved last night, wasn't even on the bench. 3 games in a row he's missed. And Ancelotti had said it was due to a minor knock, but he has said that he should be available to play against Burnley this weekend. Whether he starts or not, that's another thing to be seen. But obviously, Stephen Kenny will name a squad next week for those World Cup qualifiers against Serbia and Luxembourg. Champions League football tonight, the first 2 quarter-final places will be decided. Juventus will have to come from 2-1 behind against Porto, but Juve have home advantage for that second leg. Borussia Dortmund also have home advantage for the second leg of their game against Sevilla, and Dortmund lead 3-2 going into that last 16 tie. Paul Sheeran will be in interim charge of Aberdeen for the final 6 games of the Scottish Premiership season. Derek McInnes has left the club, and they've just won 2 out of the 13 matches. McInnes obviously won the League Cup with Aberdeen in 2014. This was a guy that was tipped to be Rangers manager. They had approached him a few times. Obviously, things transpired, but Stephen Gerrard got the job, and the rest is history, as they say. And I know it's something you're going to cover with the papers as well. It's on the back of a few of the papers. Liverpool have given Jurgen Klopp their full backing, despite the dip in form. That's never a good sign when a club have to come out and give the backing to the manager. But yeah, they've said it's absurd thoughts of Jurgen Klopp being sacked as manager. But tell you, that game tomorrow night against Leipzig is a bloody big one. Imagine what happens if Leipzig turn things around and dump Liverpool out of the Champions League.
Not going to happen. Phil, good stuff. Thanks a million for joining us this morning. That's Phil. He can give us his thoughts. We'll have more from him tomorrow, and you can read his stuff across OTBSports.com across the day and on the OTB Sports app. OTB AM is live in association with Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. Here's what's coming up between now and 10 a.m. We've got the sports pages at 10 past 8. Graham Hunter standing by the way. Jack Byrne going to join us at 20 past 8. John Duggan at 8:35 with this week's Virtual Insanity. That's tomorrow, actually. Type 5 with Neil at 8:45. Phil Healy and her coach Shane McCormack join us at 9:05 after she had a personal best and finished 4th in the European Indoor Athletics Championships at the weekend. And Keith Wood's going to join us at 9:30 this morning. If you want to get involved, 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. And of course, you can always get us on Twitter at OffTheBallAM. Right, Graham Hunter is with us this morning. Graham, good morning to you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm grand. Full of ebullient nonsense as always.
Well, that's good. What ebullient nonsense can you bring us about Joan Laporta, who obviously is a very important figure in the history of Barcelona, and he's back for another spin at a moment of crisis. The man arrives on his white horse.
You paint a pretty picture, but it's not exactly like that. What ebullient nonsense do you want about him? Look, there's a massive heady state of euphoria around Camp Nou at the moment, which I'm relatively sure that one way or another PSG will puncture tomorrow night, because Laporta, just to look at him, has changed a little bit in terms of weight, and his face looks a bit more craggy compared to 18 years ago when he became the president. But his image is instantly redolent of good decisions, good football, and trophies for socios, for fans, for Barcelona. He won a very significant victory, just about double the next candidate's votes from the members. And it's interesting because this is a guy who represents even maybe more than I said. If you think back to him being a 32-year-old lawyer in 1996 when the President Nunez and the Vice President Gaspard sacked Johan Cruyff with a game left of the 95-6 season. And this young, aggressive, competent lawyer who idolised Cruyff started a protest group, and within 7 years, from nothing, he was president. 9 years and 364 days, exactly after Cruyff was sacked, Laporta sat as president of Football Club Barcelona with Johan Cruyff as his right-hand man, winning the European Cup in only their second European Cup in Paris against Arsenal. Around Laporta, things tend to happen. This is a guy who, when he was doing his military service in Tenerife, complained that they were being served camel meat and he was put in solitary confinement, and was still several months of his military service when he was a youngster to go. He decided to bugger off to Egypt with a girlfriend, and found when he came back that he hadn't been reported, he wasn't going to jail, that his companions had yelled out, "Present," every time there'd been a roll call and the name Laporta had been shouted. This is a guy, genuinely a lightning conductor, a guy who's lived life with veracity and has made, in my opinion, some enormous gaffes. One, when he was president, when he stripped down his underpants in Barcelona airport because the security police and the national police, with whom he has a touchy, as a virulent Catalan who believes in independence, a touchy relationship with the national cops. And he kept going through this scanner at the airport, and it kept going off irrespective of the fact he said he had nothing to set the scanner, set the alarm off. And he dropped his trousers, stood there in his underpants going, what do you make of me now? Is there anything you can find that's metallic? And this is the man that Barcelona have got back, promising great things, promising glory, not promising Erling Haaland, but deep in negotiations to try and get Erling Haaland, pretty much promising that he'll be the guy that keeps Leo Messi at Football Club Barcelona. Maybe not everybody thinks that's the best thing, but the way that Messi's playing right now, the degree to which he's enjoying himself, as a neutral, I can say, I'd rather be watching him and have the chance to interview him, whatever, in my backyard, rather than, say, in Manchester or Paris. So Laporta comes back, a whirlwind, a Tasmanian devil whirlwind of promises, charisma, mischief, energy. He's a little bit Artful Dodger, a little bit Del Boy, a little bit Barca president for the second time.
5 or 6 weeks ago, we would have said that the season was over in terms of the league, and obviously it looks like their European season is going to end. And yet they've gone on a run. The form has come back. The haplessness that surrounded the early part of the Koeman era seems to have been worked through. Some kind of peace has been brokered. You put that together with what's happening off the field. The previous administration get arrested. It's like a Stephen J. Cannell drama from the 80s where everything gets wrapped up and at the end of the season everybody goes home happy.
I can't remember if I've explained this to you, but I think we were talking about Bartomeu something around this time last week, and I went downstairs to find that the guy who controls the looking after, it's called a portero, the looking after our block of flats, said to me, "Why weren't you outside earlier on today?" I said, "Why?" He said, "Well, the cops and the media were here on the corner, 50 yards away." I said, "What for?" He said, "Well, Bartomeu lives here." What? Bartomeu lives on my street, 50 yards away? Turns out because I do not move in the same financial bracket as Jose Maria Bartomeu, I promise you. Because he's split with his wife, he's got this little pied a terre that happens to be at the end of my street. Some news reporter, I am. Anyway, yeah, look, I really liked what you said about the Koeman era, because it did look hapless. And, it's 16 league games ago in middle December that Juventus came to Camp Nou and absolutely pumped Barcelona. It was a fantastic display of clever, aggressive, punchy football. They trampled all over them and scored good goals, repelled Barcelona when they had a little bit of resurgence, and it was really, really interesting to watch for a Juventus side that is not going to win the title for once this season, netly, where Pirlo is under question, etc., etc. 16 games on, after that in the league, they haven't lost. They've only drawn twice. And if you're a Barca fan, the hopes that you dangled there in your intro are true, because they fought back from 2-0 down against Sevilla in the Cup, in a game where, again, they were bullied physically. Oh, there's a theme. To win 3-0 in the most dramatic of circumstances at the Camp Nou last week, meaning that they're in the Cup final in middle April. Little nota bene, down in La Cartuja, the Olympic Stadium in Sevilla, there'll be last season's Cup final on the 3rd of April, which is Real Sociedad against Athletic. And then 14 days later, there'll be this season's cup final, which is Barca against Athletic. Athletic having won the Super Cup already this year. You know, if this change of coach to Marcelino can win Athletic 3 trophies in a year, it'll be their best ever haul. It's extraordinary. More of that in April. But yeah, Barcelona are now, objectively, if you're a neutral, tune in and watch them. It's not Xavi and Iniesta and Neymar and Suarez and Eto'o. Fine. But it's extraordinary. They're Spain's most entertaining, attractive team to watch play. They're very, very young. They're injury hit. But Koeman has altered between 4-2-3-1, 4-3-3, now 3 at the back, which was completely forbidden at Barcelona. Completely. And it's working. And what's more, I'll say again, I said it before, even though he's a little bit tired at the moment, Pedri at 18 is one of the single most exciting, intelligent, unbelievably advanced footballers at 18 I have ever seen. And if you throw in a little bit of Ansu Fati still to come back, Trincao finding his feet, De Jong playing the best football, Griezmann contributing, Braithwaite making runs for Messi, Messi happy, suddenly it's really good to watch. Will they win the title? They're 3 points behind Atleti, having played a game more. Atleti play Athletic tomorrow night when Barca are in Paris. If Atleti win that game in hand, they're surely favourites, but are Barca back in the race? Much to my amazement. Yeah, they are. Yeah.
You mentioned, Graham, that Barcelona are in talks to sign Erling Haaland. They're looking to keep Lionel Messi. Can they do both of those things?
I thought not. I thought not. I have to. I won't be Monday morning quarterback and be wise after the event. I thought the answer was, categorically impossible. What I'm assured by somebody involved in the operation, and therefore I have to trust them, and let's see if it comes true, is that Laporta has available to him an enormous credit line. Enormous. I know the financial institution, they're world famous, which would guarantee them a 9-figure sum. In that instance, they can assuage some of the short-term debt. They will try to lay off some of the short-term debt. They will definitely make the most competitive financial offer possible to Messi, who I think is beginning to incline towards staying for some of the reasons that we mentioned previously. And they can go after Haaland, whether they have enough money to persuade him, whether he wants to be part of a project or go to a club where winning is already a guarantee. That's up to the Norwegian. I don't know what his answer will be. And he's got an agent who I find it hard to respect and trust. But they're after him. They're into the battle. Where they finish up, well, we certainly won't know until May, June. But I think the answer to your question is that they can make a competitive offer to Messi. And they are definitely trying to persuade Haaland. And man, I suppose if you're Haaland, there has to be an attractiveness to playing next to Leo Messi, the greatest footballer there's ever been. And if you're Messi, there has to be some degree of attraction in playing next to this unbelievable scoring phenomenon.
You're watching that game tonight, I believe, Graham, Sevilla against Dortmund. What is the emotion you feel before watching Erling Haaland at the moment, knowing that the trajectory is just a vertical line?
Chippiness. I don't always appear on the show, but I'm one of the most chippy there's ever walked the planet. And when I see him running through challenges, I wish I was there trying to body check and hold him off to see if I could match him. You asked me, and I don't care if everybody's spluttering into their porridge this morning, but that's what I feel. And sometimes when he bullies players, I'm like off my chair and I wish I could get in there and go chin to chin. He would beat me to a pulp, but that's what I feel. As a neutral observer of football, I struggle to remember watching anybody quite like this. I mean, the guy who, in my era growing up, had a physical presence of this sort was possibly Horst Rubisch, but he was nowhere near the scoring phenomenon that Haaland is. My admiration for him goes up because you talked about him running in a vertical line as if he's just running through, hotshot Hamish and dragging players behind him. My admiration for him has gone up because it's patently clear that he's worked on link play and pressing, the elements that he can add to the natural part of his game. And all my life, I've seen players who are maybe extremely tall or who have a very good shot and they stand out for a reason, and they don't work on other things around them. I've seen tall players who don't even work on jumping just because they've been tall enough. To see Haaland at this age, with this type of projection, with this type of adoration, with a queue of suitors, which could be telling him subliminally, well, you're already the finished article. To see him going, no, I see precisely where I have to work on my game, what I have to develop to become complete, to become more dominant, to become a better footballer, that engenders as much respect. I feel awe when I watch him, what he's been given naturally. But we've all been educated to know that footballers who think about their game and work on their game and develop, they're the ones to respect.
Sorry, I'm going to just ask one quick question about this Dortmund team. At some point, maybe in 5 or 6 years' time, we look back at this collection of players and go, it's mad that they weren't a little bit more successful.
I understand that. I wonder if, budget-wise, one of the things across the time that's happened is that Bayern have come in and plundered them. Whatever the adoration that yellow wall at Signal Iduna generates to the footballers, players have repeatedly been able to look elsewhere and go, I might be better suited, or there might be more money, there might be more trophies elsewhere. That's debilitating. I think that if you look at the might, if we were all living in Germany, we were to look at the economic might, cultural might of Bayern Munich, and think about what Dortmund did when they were reaching the European Cup final, winning the title, and going toe-to-toe with Bayern, often for the Pokal and for the Super Cup, I think we would diminish that feeling. Right now, if you look at they're going to be missing Sancho, they're going to be missing Guerrero, they're going to be missing Witzel tonight against Sevilla. Yet they won away from home. They're decent favourites to go through. I think they will go through. I think Sevilla are a team that could have gone to Signal Iduna and win 2-0, but they look particularly jaded, physically run down. The psychological impact of being 2-0 up against Barcelona and then losing 3-0. All of these things undermine a team that is still in the making, and they need goal power, and they've had injuries at a very poor time, Sevilla. So winning more, yeah, I hear you. Zorc is a guy who, like Monchi, the two sporting directors of the clubs that are involved tonight, it is a guy who knows that Dortmund still have to sell to make ends meet, and that's a key factor. If footballers that you buy or produce understand that there are glittering lights elsewhere and they fancy that, and the club says, yeah, we need to get the books ticking over, then you'll always be in a state of flux. And I think that's the only thing that prevents Dortmund from being legitimate year by year, out and out competitors with Bayern Munich.
Just one final thing, Graham, the Madrid derby on Sunday, you mentioned that Barcelona are going to have a part to play in this title race now. Atletico Madrid really let Real Madrid off the hook, though, didn't they?
Hugely, and I think it was a tiny moment, because all the things that I've been constructively criticising Cholo Simeone for, and to follow my argument, now you have to accept that maybe I was right. Some people won't, but he's been far too conservative. He's picked teams badly. He's made substitutions badly. He's looked like a nervous man, Cholo Simeone. He's looked like somebody who's like, oh, we're doing not too badly, we'll just try and hold on to it. He didn't do that at the weekend. Atleti played very, very well, in my opinion, in terms of quality of play first half, particularly via Trippier and Llorente. And then in terms of the actual quality of chances second half, although Real Madrid really woke up, it still should have been Atleti's game. He makes good subs, Simeone, in this match, except he leaves Suarez on. Suarez is a bit knackered. At 1-0 up with 4 or 5 minutes left, they have a break. Suarez pulls it down. It's 1v1. Saul is catching up to make it 2v1, and Suarez fluffs the pass. Pass into space. That means that Saul either scores or Real Madrid have to go chasing him into the corner, and Suarez fluffs the pass because he's knackered. At that point, Real Madrid literally pick it up, run the length of the park, a lovely 1-2 between Benzema and Casemiro, and Benzema scores, and they're off that hook, like you said. One, he should have changed Suarez for Dembele. Dembele's not been given a proper chance. It was an obvious move. Cholo didn't do it. Little details took you up. Two, it's what Madrid always do. Both of you are maybe more committed to what's happening in the Premier League. That's your bread and butter. You watch enough, European football and La Liga to understand that's Real Madrid's calling card. If we know that, why didn't Cholo Simeone?
It's going to be interesting to see exactly what happens over the next few weeks and how their European form feeds into what happens in La Liga as well. Graham, great to have you with us this morning. Enjoy tonight's games. Cheers.
You too, lads.
It's Graham Hunter joining us this morning. Owen, still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Who is Hotshot Hamish?
So after loads and loads of research, Hotshot Hamish.
Come on. Yeah, actually, you don't know. You had to Google it.
Yeah, but I'm very impressed with this comparison. He really is the old Erling Haaland, isn't he? Like, I mean, with the exception of like the belly. Like, I mean, Hotshot Hamish sports a good beer belly while he's banging in goals from 30 yards.
Is that not his?
Away.
Is that not like a barrel chest, a kind of the protuberance of a six-pack, except it's a two-pack?
Yeah, you're probably right. Actually, it doesn't seem it's incongruous when you look at the rest of his body. The muscle-filled body of Hotshot Hamish certainly isn't in keeping with a beer belly.
A star of the Roy of the Rovers comic, essentially. That's where it came from.
Yes, that I'm now aware of that. But a really good comparison. Hotshot Haaland.
Yeah, I mean do you remember the one that the real Ronaldo, the goal that he scores where they're water skiing off him? That's essentially what Hotshot Hamish could do week in, week out. 12 minutes past 8 this morning. That's your little cultural nugget for the day done. Brilliant show still lined up. Jack Byrne is going to join us from Cyprus. Irish sprinter Phil Healy is going to join us with our coach for a chat a little bit later on. We've rugby with Neil Treacy, and we're back after these with the top stories this morning.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
This is OTB Sports Radio.
But I do remember very vividly standing in the shower after the All-Ireland final saying to Fergus McCusker, is this it? Is this it? Desolate almost, like a sense of total anticlimax. And the two of us wandered up to the Cat and Cage and had a pint. In those days, there was no big formalities. And I can remember thinking, I can feel it now when I'm sitting here, that sense of anticlimax, which was a great lesson in life. Once it's behind you, you move on.
Off the Ball, Saturdays from 1 on OTB Sports Radio. Listen live on the OTB Sports app.
Sean, what's that thing going round the garden?
That is our new Husqvarna Auto Mower.
Auto mower?
Yeah, it's a robotic lawnmower from Husqvarna. Cuts the grass automatically, has GPS tracking and an app. Even works in the rain. I just thought, why spend time cutting grass when I could spend it with the family?
Great! You can put the dinner on, so...
No can do, love. Have to paint the man cave.
Husqvarna Auto Mower. Never mow again. Learn more at husqvarna.ie.
Get ready for the Cheltenham Festival with the Boyle Sports app, with a special offer guaranteed on every race, every day of the festival, plus extra places on each way bets over all 4 days. The Boyle Sports app has got you covered. Need to study up? Check out our Racing Post insights or watch our exclusive video previews with Cheltenham Gold Cup winning jockey Robbie Power. The Cheltenham Festival on the faster than ever Boyle Sports app. Boyle Sports. This is betting. Gamble responsibly. See gamblingcare.ie. 18 plus.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
14 minutes past 8 this morning here on OTBAM. Let me run you through some of the sports paper headlines. Going to start with OTBSports.com. Curtis Jones' story shows Gerrard might have what it takes to manage Liverpool. This is, I think, from Mark Lawrenson last night. Everton boss Ancelotti gives vital update on Seamus Coleman's fitness. Nicky Henderson withdraws Bouvardere from the champion hurdle. And Leinster optimistic of Caelan Doris returning in time for the Pro 14 final. That'll be big for Irish rugby and big for him as well, and we wish him all the best in his continued recovery from those concussion-like symptoms. The Irish Examiner this morning, interesting stories in there from Page. Training with boys to prime POW's women for pressure ties. So Vera Pauw has organised that talented players will train with boys, each from their own level, so they feel the resistance they feel in the international games, because we feel that's what cost us. The players will train with boys' youth sides close to their Women's National League clubs, with the FAI covering any insurance issues, and Vera Pauw says there's been no resistance from coaches, so she thinks this is going to help the women's national sides at underage and senior level step up when it comes to qualifying for the World Cup. Jack Chambers has been out. Sports without gender balance should face funding hit. So there are a greater number of national governing bodies that are falling below the 30% mark. Included in this group are the GAA at 11%, the FAI at 25% and the IRFU at 8%. The IRFU is one of 12 NGBs reporting 10% female representation or less on their boards. And then they go on to list American Football Ireland, Horseshoe Pitchers Association of Ireland, Bull Cullen the Heron, Irish Athletic Boxing Association, Water Ski and Wakeboard Federation, Motorsport Ireland, Snooker and Billiards do not have a single female on their respective boards, according to last December's update. That's Jack Chambers' intent on not giving the funding that is due to those sports organisations unless they actually meet the criteria. Keith Earls has signed a new deal, and GA water breaks could be here to stay into the future. I don't know what everybody thinks about the water breaks and whether or not they're a good idea.
No, they're not a good idea.
It kills the water carrier role, so you're not allowed on the pitch anymore. That's the trade-off there, is that you don't have somebody adding an extra runner into the field of vision of the Kerry goalkeeper when he's kicking the ball out.
Well, actually, that's true. It clearly didn't stand. It didn't stand anybody except the Dubs in good stead last year. Like what you're getting at there is the comments from Eamon Fitzmaurice that was this
Jail.
Sherlock. Yeah, Jail used to do it to distract it. They didn't need that last year, basically. But the water breaks are terrible. Like obviously, I presume it's for COVID. That's why everybody needs to go to their own individual bottle and all that sort of thing, if possible. If players can be hydrated in a safe manner. The sooner they can do that, the better, basically, is the point I would make. They were terrible, and they just kind of delayed the progress in a game where you would find, and I know you hate this phrase, but maybe momentum would appear from nowhere in the middle of a half of GEA. It was more artificial. Like, obviously, you could just plan each quarter, and obviously Limerick Hurlers nailed it. Paul Knirk with his big board, his big tactics board, he obviously absolutely nailed it last year, and it just feels that there is a little more off-the-cuff action that happens, a little more invention that is required without the water breaks, and I think the sport is better for that.
The London Times, we've already told you that rugby's going to save the union. Kind of, probably not, absolutely not. FA ready to appoint first chairwoman, and the owner is fully behind Klopp. That's the story in all of the newspapers today, that Liverpool are backing Klopp and dismiss job doubts as absurd. I don't think anybody really realistically thought that Liverpool were going to be the ones making this move. This is one of those situations where you get a comment and it's like, no, that wasn't the story. The story is that perhaps Jurgen Klopp has had enough. That's the only way this happens, right? That was my take on this.
I can't see a situation where Liverpool get rid of Jurgen
Klopp.
No,
it makes no sense.
It would be one of the stupidest moves in sport for them to get rid of Jurgen Klopp at this point, like for what he's done and the level that they will still attack next season at, assuming they can keep all their stars. If you get rid of Jurgen Klopp, is Mo Salah more likely or less likely to stay? Unless there was like some massive beef happening behind the scenes that we're not aware of, he's probably less likely to stay. A lot of those stars have had their own careers brought to a whole new level under Jurgen Klopp. I'm trying to think, has there been a player who was better pre-Klopp than he is under Jurgen Klopp? And I don't think there's a single player in that Liverpool team who aren't grateful to him and what he's done for their own careers personally. So if Liverpool get rid of him, they're looking at other walkouts as well, I'd imagine. Not in a sort of sulky way, but because you lose your totemic figure who's able to magnetise and keep the whole dressing room together. I guess we're talking about it, so maybe it is a real thing, but
no, him maybe
serious.
Leaving is something that you could see happening, where there's a bit of burnout and he goes, right, I'm going to take a year out and go off and do something else and travel the world and have some crack. Like, gone through fairly emotional, life-changing events himself over the last 2 months, and you can see how at that stage the effort and energy that it has taken to wrestle Liverpool from not particularly relevant in the title race to champions and one of the best teams in European football, that will take a toll. I can see him coming back refreshed next season and going for it again when he has his full quotient of people. 19 minutes past 8, going to do the Herald for you here as well. Liverpool sacking Klopp not in the cards. We can ignore that one. Can a new coach or caddy help Rory? That's the level we're at the moment about the analysis. He's out of the world's top 10. You get more for that on Golf Weekly this week. Elliott did not know photo had been taken. Details are beginning to leak out from the submissions that Gordon Elliott made to the IHRB. He told last Friday's referrals committee he was unaware the photograph of him sitting on the dead horse had been taken. He also told the committee that he had no family background in horse racing, but it was love of animals and horses that got him to where he is today, and stated that anybody who knows him would confirm his love of horses. They spoke with the vet, Gerard Kelly. He told the committee that he'd been treating horses trained by Elliott since 2008 and described the horses presented to him as being extremely well looked after. He never had any concerns for their welfare. Mr. Elliott was a client who always considered the best interest of the horse, and their appearance would always be immaculate. In 13 years, he never saw any evidence of a lack of respect to horses under his care, and went beyond expectations by writing to thank the people who'd looked after the horses while they were being treated. Michael O'Leary also gave evidence saying that he would confidently say it's a level of care and attention unmatched by any other national hunt trainer in the country. He was shocked and surprised by the image, but he said it was out of character as well. So that's interesting that he didn't know the photograph was being taken. It kind of, I don't know, maybe that story's finished. The Irish Times: new laws on show down under could turn rugby union into league. Heaven forbid that the professional game would be the same as the other professional game, that they play with the same ball on the same field. Leinster and Munster ready for the French. This is the draw for the Champions Cup, which is going to be made today. Scots always think they can beat Ireland, but finally they have the talent, is the headline on Jerry Thornley's column. 8:21 this morning. Let's move on. It's time to get into Jack Byrne. Owen caught up with him yesterday afternoon to chat about his life in Cyprus, his future with Ireland, and much more besides. Enjoy.
Now, Spar FAI School Zone was launched today by current Republic of Ireland footballer Jack Byrne. Spar FAI School Zone is a new digital learning initiative that has been designed by the FAI and sponsored by Spar for teachers and parents of primary school children in 4th, 5th and 6th class. It offers interactive and engaging lesson plans designed with both the classroom and homeschooling in mind. You can register on the FAI website, so register for Spar FAI School Zone at fai.ie/domestic, and you'll get all the details there. Jack Byrne, how is life?
All good. Now settling in really well. New culture, meeting new people, really enjoying it.
I'm really looking forward to hearing about all of that. But just first off, how is the injury? How did the surgery go last week?
Yeah, surgery was fine. It's not a big procedure, you know. It's just one of those things that allowed me to get back 100%. You know, myself and the club had a conversation, and we were about in agreement that we should probably get it done and you know, get back fit and back for it, and you know, look forward to doing the rehab now and cracking on and getting strong. Some great people here. The club been really supportive. You know, the surgeon was great. So you know, couldn't ask for more. They've been brilliant with me since I first came here. Since I first walked in the door, they've been absolutely, can't do enough for me. So you know, really happy with how it's going.
What has rehab involved so far?
Lying down. Can't do much at the moment. It's just, I'm just waiting for it to heal. Just waiting for, obviously, you know, where the incision was. It was obviously keyhole surgery, so it's not that bad. It's not that big of a wound, but you still need to give it time. To heal. But look, everything's gone well. See the surgeon again on Friday, and then can start cycling, start swimming. Start running after 4 weeks. So, you know, it's not a massive problem. So, you know, positive mindset and just go on and hopefully, you know, touch wood, all goes well.
And are you planning to see the recovery out in Cyprus?
Yeah, of course. You know, the club here are brilliant. Like, you know, we could have went home and got the surgery done back home, or you know, but I didn't want to do that. I want to be around the lads. I've really made some good friends here, you know, some, you know, obviously not all English, not all Irish. The only English lad here is Joe Garner. So myself and him been getting on really well. But there's a lot of good people, you know, a lot of Spanish, a lot of Portuguese, Greek, few Brazilians. The crack is a bit different, like, you know, but I think everyone's getting used to me now, and I'm getting used to them, and they've been so supportive that, you know, the physios here are so good. We have a physio here that was at Panathinaikos for over 25 years. So, you know, it's a huge club. They've got everything in place, rehab wise, swimming pool in there, you know, top physios. So look, everything's gone well. There was no reason for me to leave. So I'm looking forward to being here and getting it right and cracking on, and you know, following their advice, because you know, you obviously work with the best.
I just checked it this morning. I think it's 20 degrees over there at the moment, so you've definitely made the right choice in staying there.
It's actually a little bit cold today. I think it's only 9 p.m.
It's interesting that you mentioned the different nationalities in your dressing room, because I also checked that as well. And it seems that there's way more non-Cypriot players in the dressing room than there are players from Cyprus in the dressing room. It must be this really interesting multicultural place to be a footballer.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, that's part of being here. And that's part of learning as a man, learning how to deal with different nationalities and, you know, learning how to speak to different people. And a lot of it is broken English, you know, as you can probably imagine. So there's a lot of people in here in the same boat, not here that long, only signed, coming over. So, you know, you feel as if you're helping them as well, because they might not speak English, might not be their first language, and obviously I speak English, and a lot of the other lads speak good English, you know. So it's you're kind of helping them. A couple of the Spanish lads, there's a couple of Spanish speaking lads that don't really speak English. So, you know, these things, it's just everyone trying to help each other, and you know, there's only one language on the football pitch, and that's football, and that's passing the ball and moving the ball, and everyone understands that. So, you know, once they're on the pitch, everything's fine, and you know, really enjoying it. That everyone's been really helpful, and you know, settled in well. Even would obviously love to be playing now at the moment, but you know, unfortunate with the injury, but everything's going well, and they can't do enough. And we have a great group of players there, and it's good to be around them, and you want to be around them, and you want to be helping and supporting them as well. You know, during this time now, because we've a big cup game coming up on Wednesday, so you know, you want to be trying to be in there. You don't want to. No reason for me to go off and do my rehab elsewhere. You want to be involved in the team, and you want to be, you know, part of the team, because that's why I came here, to be part of a great club, and players are great, to be fair.
I presume the locals speak either Greek or Turkish there. Have you picked up any of the language?
No, to be honest, no. But like a lot of them speak English.
Yeah.
A lot of English people actually in Cyprus. You know, people probably don't realise that there's actually a lot of English people over here. But you know, it's been good. It's been great. It's you know, it's not been difficult. It's just normal. It's just a little bit harder than Ireland. So no, settling in well, and you know, the fans here and stuff. You're walking around the streets, and you know, they live and breathe Applewell, and you know, it's great to be part of that. So you know, they're really helpful, to be fair.
I'd say that's going to be amazing once you get a full stadium again over there. That's fantastic.
Once you get a full stadium here, this place, that was one of the reasons why, you know, I obviously wanted to come here, because even if you look on YouTube, some of the videos of, you know, when they're in the Champions League, Europa League, the derby games, I think we had 500 fans at the training ground. I don't know if you've seen the videos before the Ammonia game, which is the derby game in the cup. Flares on the training pitch, and you know, if that doesn't give you a boost, and if you don't want to play for people who are basically, you know, this is their life, and this is what, you know, they invest all their money into. So if you don't have a buzz to play for them, you'll never have a buzz to play football. So it's a great experience, to be fair.
It was a really interesting first few weeks for you at the club. Obviously signed by Mick McCarthy. How soon did you realise that he was in a bit of bother once you got there?
No, it's a difficult one, because I signed for Mick, but Mick will probably say this himself. He obviously had an input on who we wanted to bring to the club, but it's more the president and the sporting director here, basically, who I was dealing with, who my agent was dealing with, and you know, they showed a real interest in bringing me to the club. You know, they obviously knew Applewell wasn't my only option. So, you know, they had a plan. They brought a plan forward to us. And the conversations that I was having with them showed me that, you know, they really wanted me. Applewell really wanted me, and you know, they were going to be supportive, and they have been so supportive to me since I've been here, and they are showing a lot of faith in me. You know, so, you know, obviously love Mick. Mick gave me my international debut. You know, Terry Connor's also a big decision in me going with Mick, because, you know, even when I was with Ireland, Terry was such a help with me. pulling me after training sessions, showing me videos, you know, saying, listen, Jack, you're the best player in Ireland, but it's not good enough to just to be the best player in Ireland. This is what you need to improve, you know. And you know, from that information that Terry was giving me and him showing me, you know, like that attention to detail to my game to try and improve me, I can't thank Terry enough as well. So you know, Terry was a big reason in me coming here at that time. Unfortunately, I couldn't work with him for longer because, you know, obviously you seeing how well they're doing now at Cardiff is great, and absolutely delighted for them. But shows the sign of Mick as well, and shows the sign of Terry that, you know, before I went in for the operation, they gave me a phone call, and you know, didn't have to do that, you know. So you know, Mick, great person, great man. Terry, great person, great man, and you know, wish them well. And just looking forward now to getting back fit, and I'm doing well for Applewell because, you know, the president here and all the staff here have shown great faith in me, first of all, bringing me here. So, you know, just looking forward to repaying it and hopefully working hard. Hopefully it works out.
How much did the experience of going to the Netherlands help during those first few weeks, knowing what it's like to be in an environment that isn't Ireland or England? Or Scotland in your case, I should say.
Yeah, massive, you know, because, look, I was young then. I was fearless. I was, you know, I remember having a conversation with my brother before I went over. He said, this is great for you, Jack. This is going to be unbelievable. He said, but don't forget, this is going to be tough. And I was thinking, this is going to be easy. You know what I mean? I said, go over here, I'll play against Ajax, I'll play against PSV, I'll rip it up. You know what I mean? Just young, fearless. But then after 2 or 3 weeks, you're sitting in a hotel room. You've got no mates. You know, all your mates are back in Manchester, who you've built a relationship with for the last 5 years. You got a new coach. You know, they don't speak English. You finish training at 12 o'clock, 12:30 every day. And you're on your own in the middle of Holland. And, you know, that was tough. You know, that's when it hit me after 3 weeks. I was thinking, this is going to be tough, you know, and I probably struggled for a month, 2 months then, but then I got used to it and I got the hang of it. So that's definitely helped me here because, you know, we kind of had an idea of what I was going into, and just trying to, you know, fill spare time a little bit better, having the experience of, you know, doing it before.
Josh Cullen obviously is playing well in Belgium at the moment. Again, another path less travelled. Is it something you would actually actively encourage young Irish players to do, to get out of the usual sort of pathway to the UK?
If it suits them, you know. It obviously suits Josh. It suits me, European football. It definitely suits Josh. You can see how well Josh is doing there, and I know that they really, really rate him over there because, you know, there's a couple of Man City connections over there who we still speak to. So, you know, I know that they do definitely rate Josh, and why wouldn't they? He's a top player, like, you know, he's a really good player. He might not be, you know, I don't know, a championship manager down the bottom of the table, top player, but he is a top European style player, and you know, he can definitely play well in them leagues. So if it does suit you and your style allows you to go and play in them leagues and earn, you know, good money and have a 10-year career in them leagues rather than a 2-year career in League One and be dropping down the leagues because it might not suit you as well, then why not? But, you know, it's hard to put a finger on many Irish players that can make that transition. You know, it's hard to you know, think off the top of my head another Josh Cullen coming through,
right,
in Ireland, you know. So it's player specific, like, you know. So if it does suit you, definitely go. But it is more technical and it is more tactical. So, you know, maybe it's not Irish players' strength, but it's certainly Josh's strength, and certainly I think everybody knows that.
Yeah, for sure. When it comes to Ireland, then obviously you're going to be missing for the next international break. Before the injury, how close did you feel you were to getting meaningful game time under Stephen Kenny?
You know, But I never really think of it like that. I always just think of, if I'm called upon, just go in and try and train well and play well, and try and do as well as I can in training to be in his mind, and that's all. Like, Stephen's fair. He's a fair manager. He's gonna pick who he feels is the best to get a result for the country, and everybody accepts that in the squad. Everybody's there for one reason only, and that's for Ireland to get a result. And that's whether you're called upon for 5 minutes at the end of the game to try and win the game, or you're in the team to start. He's picking a team that he thinks is going to win a game, and the whole of the squad will support that. And even if I'm sitting at home and I'm not in the squad, I'm an Irish fan, I'm still going to support that. So, obviously everybody wants to play. Everybody wants to play every minute of every game, and it's everyone's their play for their country and start games and, be the main man. But, I know that, if I'm called upon, I'm confident. I think I've shown before that, we can do well, and I can affect games at that level. I do believe that. But, that's Stephen's decision, and everybody supports him. There's nobody in that camp with their heads down if they're not playing, because at the end of the day, trying to win a game for our country, you know what I mean? So everyone's supporting everybody.
And I guess part of that is Stephen Kenny being a good communicator and an open communicator with you, being clear what your role is and how you can get more game time, I presume. Yeah, but Stephen, I said in an interview earlier on, Stephen has always been great with me. Stephen gave me competitive debut, so like he's always been there to give me advice. And not only Stephen, Damien was brilliant with me, and Keith Andrews was brilliant. So, always there to give advice, always there to tell you what you can do, what you can do better. But just on a human level, ringing me when I came out here, wishing me the best of luck, saying he'd be watching the games, it doesn't have to do that. When I'm going in from the operation, drops me a message, best of luck, hope everything goes well, get back fit soon. Doesn't have to do that either, so can't speak highly enough of Stephen. Listen, football is football, but off the pitch, he's been absolutely, unbelievable with me, and very supportive. So, and at the end of the day, he's the man who has given me 2 competitive caps. So, I can only be thankful for what he's done for my career, Just on Damien Duff then, you've got a fairly close idea of how good a coach he is. On the outside looking in, we don't really know what he's been doing and how much he's going to be missed over the next little while. Can you talk us through that? How much will Damien Duff be missed in the setup?
Yeah, Damien be missed because, good person, great experience. Obviously played in World Cups, scored in World Cups for Ireland, knows Ireland like the back of his hand. Was very helpful with, me, a younger player kind of coming through. Successful, Damien will be successful in whatever he does, because he has that drive. You don't play in the Premier League, you don't win Premier Leagues if you don't have that drive. But I also know they're getting an unbelievable coach in Anthony Barry. And, I had Anthony Barry at Wigan for a couple of weeks when I was there, and very good to me, very helpful. Really nice person, scouser, funny, but like a different coach, different to Damien. So look, I think he'll do really well there. I think he'll help. I think the lads will love him. But the lads are going to love whoever comes in there, because everybody's fighting for the same thing. Everybody wants Ireland to qualify for the World Cup. So, if it's Damien, brilliant. The lads love Damien when he was there. If it's Anthony, I know the lads are going to love Anthony, because, they're trying to win games to qualify for the World Cup. So, it's the lads are going to buy into everything and whatever anybody says, because at the end of the day, you want to win the games for your country and you want to qualify for the World Cup. So, I think it'll all go well, and I think I'm actually really looking forward to watching the games. And I know from what Stephen was was trying to do. I know it was so difficult with the COVID and missing players left, right, and centre. I know it was obviously very difficult the last couple of games. So I'm looking forward to seeing how they get on, because I've seen the ideas that he wants to implement and the way that he wants to play, and it's exciting. It's exciting for Irish football. So looking forward to it.
Finally, then, from what you've seen at training level, from the games that you've played before you actually get out onto the pitch in competitive matches, how close is this team to clicking and actually starting to score goals?
Not far away at all, I don't think, and I think it helps as well when the crowds come back. I think when you've got 40,000 people in the Aviva, cheering you home. I remember sitting there, listening to the noise when David McGoldrick scored a header against was it Denmark or Switzerland? Can't remember.
Switzerland, yeah.
Switzerland, yeah, and that noise, you can't replicate that noise in an empty stadium. The fans sucked the ball into the goal. That's what it was. It was a green wall of fans just sucking that ball into that goal. And it was coming. That goal was coming because the atmosphere was building and the pressure was building. And that's half the battle with Irish football, sometimes. So, the way Stephen wants to play, shots, crosses, building up from the back, possession-based football, but with shots and crosses. When you've got a full stadium there, and it's exciting, and fans are going to enjoy watching Irish teams keeping the ball and creating chances. Well, then I can only see it being a positive, and I can only see the team doing really well on the stadium.
For sure. Well, just a reminder as well that Spar FAI School Zone was launched today by current Republic of Ireland footballer Jack Byrne, and you can register for Spar FAI School Zone today at fai.ie/domestic. And it is Jack Byrne that you've been listening to for the last little while. Jack, thanks a million for your time.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Yeah, really interesting stuff there from Jack Byrne. He seems to be enjoying life, and hopefully he just gets an injury-free run so we all get to see exactly what he can do in Nicosia. And I know in other places today he's talking about how football in the continent suits him, and how at some point he would like to try himself in England too. So anyway, OTB AM is live in association with Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. It is 8:42 this morning. John Duggan, good morning to you. How are you?
Ger Eoin, are we keeping well?
Not bad. We'll do your lap of honour for the golf tomorrow when we do this week's Virtual Insanity. But it's going well. That's all I'm going to say for now.
Yeah. It's a week away from Cheltenham, guys, and if that Virtual Insanity sanity can bring me to a good Cheltenham, I'm hoping that everybody will be happy in 10 days' time. So it's funny when you're seeing things. I already have picked out the Players' Championship tips. I already know who's going to win it until he doesn't, and we'll find out tomorrow.
Okay, good stuff. That's this week's Virtual Insanity, John's weekly column around golf. Now, what are we talking about? I'm consistently impressed with Thomas Tuchel, but we've talked a lot about Chelsea already. West Ham quietly sneaking in there. Yeah,
absolutely. Let's just, I suppose, wrap it up by just saying that Seamus Coleman will play for Everton against Burnley this weekend. Carlo Ancelotti's confirmed that despite the absence of him last night in a 2-0 defeat in the Premier League at Stamford Bridge. You're talking about Tuchel there. Yeah, he's had 11 games, 13 goals, only 2 goals conceded, unbeaten. Kai Havertz playing a key role in those goals from Ben Godfrey, the own goal, and then the Jorginho penalty, which Havertz earned. And Tuchel praised Havertz for his display.
He needs to adapt to Premier League. He needs to adapt to a club where you play to win every game, where the highest standards are normal. This is a normal process also to adapt to this kind of mentality. But I think that he did this today excellent. He showed up in between the lines in offensive positions, and he used his potential.
Yeah, Thomas Tuchel speaking there. And West Ham, as you say, Ger, 2-0 winners over Leeds, 5th in the table. This is back to the Cotty and McAvenny days of West Ham's like getting the nosebleeds around the top of the English first tier. So Jesse Lingard, Craig Dawson with the goals, and Moyes delighted with the side's form.
Look, we're in a good position. We're really pleased that we're up challenging the top boys. Another win. We've just won. You know, if you'd given me Sheffield United at home, Tottenham at home, Leeds United at home and said that you'll win the 3 games, I'd have said, well, what a really good return that is.
And so it's interesting that Rice and Souček have been so key really for West Ham this season. I'd love to. It wouldn't be a different universe as you had Jack Byrne speaking there. If you had Jack Byrne involved, if you was Fish and you had Rice and you had Grealish and you had all these players, but that's an alternative universe. Unfortunately, we don't live in.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the year, isn't it? This has been the season where it all feels a little bit more painful. Like, we all knew that there was going to be a moment where either we would be sitting here smug, being like, Rice never made it, Grealish never made it. This is the season where both of them have firmly made their case as, yeah, we made it. And they'll both play in the Euros this year and both play a significant part, you feel.
Yeah. I mean, there is an alternative universe where Martin O'Neill capped them both and put them in the team, and they have 25 caps each, and Martin O'Neill is taking Ireland to the Euros. That's the level of quality that those players have. That's what international football is like. It's these tiny margins between a bunch of really mediocre sides. And Jack Grealish could have been playing international football from the time he was 17 or 18. He's got that quality. He'd have been kicked and kicked and kicked, but it turns out he's pretty bionic most of the time.
If you're good enough, you're young enough. Yeah.
Yeah, Ireland needs to view itself as like Borussia Dortmund from now on. Like, get the kids in early. Put in. I know they put in Ger Eoin last year, getting Haaland at a young age, getting all these teenagers together and playing. And of course, there's a chance in the Dortmund world where they'll get bought, but you won't be able to do that. What is it? 4 appearances you have to make now for your country to be safe from being plucked by an opposition country. I think Ireland possibly needs to view it that way. Like, I don't know how we managed to get into this conversation yet again on a Tuesday morning.
That's what I thought.
Positivity.
It's better than a cultural reference zone. It's probably better than a cultural reference and utter hysterics. But speaking of Dortmund, they're got a 3-2 lead over Sevilla going into tonight's Champions League last 16, second leg tie, kick-off at 8 o'clock. Juventus 2-1 down against Porto. They got a bit of work to do. Jurgen Klopp has got the full backing of Liverpool's owners, the Fenway Sports Group. Kelsa Prees, it's on the back of the pages. So obviously there's nothing going on in sport really if they're going with that story. Obviously Fenway seen as everybody else should really that Liverpool's rotten luck with injuries is precipitating their fall to 8th in the Premier League. The funny headline at the back of the UK Times today: Lions series to save Union. So the UK government minister is backing financial guarantees for the hosting of South Africa in the summer now that Scottish independence is back on the agenda.
This is not rugby union. This is the union of.
This is union.
Yeah.
This is the 1700 whatever act it was, whatever act of union.
1801, I think.
1801. There you go. Robert Emmer time. So so the Tour of South Africa obviously a non-runner because of COVID. Stadiums would need to be 25% full for it to make sense financially. But is this against everything that the Lions is supposed to be about? The Lions is supposed to be watching brilliant rugby down under or in South Africa and being on a massive jolly. But maybe they just have to have it here in the British and Irish islands for it to kind of be feasible. Sam Bennett, third general classification, entering today's third stage of the Paris-Nice. Today's stage of 14-kilometre time trial around Gien. Racing today, Clonmel off at 2:25, and Cheltenham Festival hope Galvin has been transferred from Gordon Elliott's yard to Ian Ferguson's stable in Ballymena ahead of a run next week. So the exodus has not completely ceased from Gordon Elliott's yard after Cheveley Park left last week.
All right, we'll keep a close eye on that. We'll talk a lot more about Cheltenham next week and in the continuing build-up. Good stuff, John. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks.
Hey, guys. Cheers.
More from John across the day on OTBSports.com and on the OTB Sports app. We've got the Type 5 up next with Neil Treacy. First, here's Keith Wood talking about Ulster winger Robert Baloucoune.
Because I was going to ask you, this guy is a test winger for Ireland down the line, is he?
For me, he is, all day. I mean, avulsion is almost onomatopoeic. It sounds like a disgusting word. Yes, that obviously can't be good. It's a horrible injury, and he's come back, and I thought, you know, sometimes you can come back and you're older, when you get injured young and you're older and you've put extra work in. He looked powerful.
Right.
So before I thought he looked elusive and fast. I thought at the weekend he looked powerful. And for the try that he scored and the disallowed try, you know, it was a pretty fantastic play. So I hope we have a summer tour, and I hope he goes on it, and I hope we get to see him in a green jersey pretty soon, because he's very exciting.
Okay. I think legitimately everybody's excited about Baloucoune and what he might be able to bring to the team. And again, maybe that's part of that conversation we were just having about getting the kids in there for the Republic of Ireland. Maybe the same holds for the rugby team as well. Time for the Type 5 with Neil Treacy. Neil, good morning to you.
Morning, guys. How are you doing?
Very well. Ireland's line-out discipline, the 5-metre tap and go is making a comeback. England, Shades of Ireland 2019, Champions Cup and Challenge Cup draws today. What's on the cards? And Lions Watch, which we didn't get to last week. Let's start with Ireland's line-out discipline. A lot of credit going to Paul O'Connell. It's like he's kind of arrived with a magic wand and fixed everything, and maybe he has.
Yeah, for the most part, he's fixed a lot of things. A lot of the simple stuff, I suppose, that Ireland were messing up really over the course of the last year. Just the movement of the players in the line out, issues around throwing, and I think it's just general communication and organisation. But we kind of spoke last week on the Tide 5 about how Ireland were actually really, really good last week at how they were kind of playing off the back of lineouts and, you know, the speed of the attack. But just something towards that happened twice in the second half that I want to look at is Ireland's discipline at lineouts, because they did concede 2 penalties inside the Italian 5-metre line that would actually be a bit concerning, because we speak so much about, over the course of those first couple of games, how Ireland weren't as clinical as they needed to be when they got the chances. And if you think back to the game against France in Paris in October, when Ireland had quite a few chances in the French 22 as well, and, you know, consistently messed up or couldn't quite get their maul set. So this is just something that happened a couple of times in the Italian, inside the Italian 5-metre line 2 weeks ago, and just something to watch out for again this coming weekend, because it's a very, very simple play. It's no real like dark arts or anything like that. It's nothing like the kind of nothing intricate like the scrum stuff we were talking about last week. It's just probably trying to push the boundary out a little bit too far and ultimately kind of getting caught out. This is probably one of the oldest plays in the book, just to protect your jumper. So we're going to run through a few stills here. The first one we have, this is the setup of the line out. 5 metres from the Italian line, and circled in red there we have James Ryan standing behind Ger Byrne. So these are the two we're going to be looking at. Ger Byrne ultimately is going to be the jumper, and James Ryan is going to be lifting from the back. So that's the first image we have, just to kind of set the scene and show you where they are and kind of where they're facing, as you can see, pointing towards the touchline. So if we roll it on to the next clip, the next picture, you should be able to see on your screen here now, this is Ger Byrne up in the air. James Ryan is lifting him from the back, and you can see the 2 arrows that I have on the screen there. They're kind of pointing diagonally back down the pitch. So at this point, Ger Byrne has gone up into the air, and I'm kind of doing James Ryan lifting him here. But what he's doing is he's lifting him up and he's turning him like this, and he's kind of taking a step out to his right, so that he's moving out in front of Ger Byrne, and he's kind of positioning Byrne so that he's pointing back towards his team to potentially set up a maul. And as we can see then, on the next picture, just as they come down to the ground, what you can see what's happened is James Ryan, by stepping across, he's actually put himself in front of Ger Byrne. So as he's brought Byrne down to the ground, he is kind of acting as a buffer.
Are you allowed to do
that? You're not. You know, Ireland got penalised for it by the referee.
Right.
So, like, it's something that teams have been doing since the dawn of lifting in the mid-90s. It's something teams have always been trying to do. Like, it's a case of, if you want to do it, you have to do it a little bit, you have to have a bit of subtlety to it. So it's more of a case that Ireland didn't quite have that subtlety and being able to kind of protect Ger Byrne without actually kind of going over the top with it. So James Ryan, obviously, like you can see it, he's kind of directly behind Byrne. So it's kind of just creating a blocker. It's literally like it's obstruction is the dictionary definition of it. So Ireland gave away a penalty there.
I was interested in this one because you can see Ringrose is actually at the front there. He's joining it. He was actually part of the line out.
Yeah, they're doing that a lot. Like most teams will do that a lot. They'll have potentially a scrum half, or, you know, any member of the team will kind of stand in at various points in a line out, sometimes at the front, so that they just kind of have a blocker. But what they might do then is they might have some more of their kind of like loose forwards out in the back line to work as runners. So that's kind of nothing revolutionary. You'd see a lot of teams doing that, but we just have another. What's
the point of it, though? What role is he going to fulfill? Are they trying to get the ball in his hands somewhere off the maul, off the back of the maul, so that you've got somebody with footwork, as opposed to just the? So traditionally, we would have seen the number 8 or the hooker be the person who gets the ball at the back of that, right? I'm wondering, is there any point where they're thinking, let's see what happens if we were to have Larmour or Ringrose, who has a bit of footwork off the back of as that maul collapses or as far as it goes. Is there any point in that, or is he just a body there to fill in numbers?
I think it's a wait and see case, so that they might just run that play 10 times in a row across the span of 3 or 4 different games by maybe setting up a maul or popping the ball out to, you know, CJ Stander or a traditional kind of hard runner, and kind of build up a pattern of things so the teams are watching them do this. And then someday down the line, it could be half a season down the line, they always know that they have the option of bringing in, whether it's Gary Ringrose who is standing in it, or it might be James Lowe, or it might be Conor Murray or something like that. And it's kind of creating the diversion. So the teams are looking at him going, I wonder what he's doing here, just like you're doing right now. So they're looking at him thinking, surely he's here for a reason.
Yeah.
He might not necessarily actually be there for a reason, other than to just put that picture in people's heads. Yeah.
Okay.
But we're just going to look at another example of that lineup when Ireland got caught even later on in the game then as well. So this was twice during the game. Like, it's just poor setup. It's just not selling the picture right. So as we can see this time round, it's Andrew Porter lifting Ryan Baird. So this is our fourth picture. So this is just setting the scene again. It is Porter lifting Ryan Baird up into the air, and as you can see, Porter facing directly back towards the touchline as normal. But as you can see then, when he hits the ground, again, he's directly behind Ryan Baird, acting as that shield, acting as that buffer between the ball and the Italian maul. And then we actually have another picture here, which is just a closer up view, and you can see just how obvious it is and how easy it is to spot for the referee. And it is something that, you know, as I said, it's been going on since the dawn of time in rugby, but it is something at the moment that they have been clamping down on that little bit harder. So, look, if Ireland are going to try do this at the weekend against Scotland, they are going to have to be a lot more subtle about it.
Yeah, or maybe don't do it. The whole point of the penalties is like to try and condition behaviour. It's like the offside in people in front of the kicker chasing the ball. It's like no one ever gets pinged for that, and then all of a sudden it's like a festival of penalties for it, and hopefully it stops.
Yeah, these come in waves. Like almost every offence in the game is going to be clamped down on at some point, and you go through, it might be a month, it might be 6 months where referees are going absolutely hard on it, and look, eventually over time it's going to trickle off. I would say in a year you're going to see loads of this and it's going to be going unpunished. At the moment it's something the referees are a bit hot on.
The 5 metre tap and go is making a comeback?
It is, and this is something I've enjoyed now over the course of this season so far, and it seems to be more and more every single weekend we're seeing it, and it's something we saw Leinster doing quite a bit on Saturday against Ulster. Just in general, I've never, as much as I love scrums, I've never really been a fan of the 5 metre scrum, unless you're completely on top at the set piece. I always just think there's too much that can go wrong in it. Just the slip of a leg, the slip of a few studs on the ground can cost you a penalty at the scrum. And when you're on the 5 metre line of the opposition, I just think there's too much to risk there unless you're completely on top. This is a much more controlled environment. And look, also as well, I think one thing that adds to it, it just speeds up the game in general for teams to be doing this. And it probably makes things a little bit more entertaining, because I know so many people turn off rugby because they just get caught in an endless set of resets and an endless set of, you know, a penalty at a scrum leading to another scrum, which leads to another penalty, and you can lose 3 or 4 minutes at a time on it, particularly the closer you get to the try line. Move it back out towards the 22, I think you know, teams are much more willing to have a go and have an attack, and, you know, they want to get the ball in and out. But when you're that close to a try line, it just always seems to be messy. So this is something that I think is just speeding up the game. It's nice to see it coming back in as well. And we're going to look at how Leinster have been using this over the last while, and how they did it against Ulster, which this actually led up to. This was the penalty in about 2 phases time. Michael Bent is going to go over for Leinster's first try. So as we can see here, you've got in the picture in front of us, James Treacy is bending down to tap the ball and go from 5 metres out. On his left, he is Rhys Ruddock, who's latching onto him, ready to go. And then to his right, he has Scott Fardy as well. So what they're going to be doing, the plan here is that James Treacy, Rhys Ruddock and Scott Fardy, essentially they are going to be hitting the Ulster tacklers at the same time. They're going to be going in a wave of 3. But crucially, what Ruddock and Fardy have to be wary of, and what they have to make sure they don't do, is get ahead of James Treacy and initiate the contact first, because at that point then the 2 of them are going to be offside. So if we move on to our second picture, you can see, I mean, just about, they actually have timed this really, really well. They are just about connecting just as James Treacy is being tackled. So they're not moving ahead of him, and they haven't gone offside, and they haven't, there's nothing illegal in it. They're actually doing this just right.
So just to clarify, from the laws of the game, are they allowed to touch him until he's touched, or do they have to wait until he's touched and then they can join?
No, they are actually allowed to. I think one of them at least is allowed to pre-bind onto James Treacy. That actually is allowed. I know it's something a lot of players have kind of complained about before. I did see Nigel Owens make a very good point about this, though, that when he was asked about it, that he kind of hadn't thought about this before, up until he said that if you think about it, so many tackles these days are actually two tacklers on one ball carrier. So at some point you actually kind of have to put a bit of balance back to it and allow a ball carrier to have that extra bit of support. But on our second picture here, we can actually just see the point of the impact. We can see the point of the impact that the three of them are having at the same time. And then we move on to our third picture. And this is what you see. This is why they're doing it. This is the protection you get. You can see that James Treacy's been tackled. Ruddock and Fardy have come in over and they've managed to clean out, and it gives you clean ball. So there's no chance for an Ulster player to get into a jackal position on top of that, because no sooner has James Treacy been tackled that he has two support players getting right in over him and sealing off that. So the caveats for all of this, as much as it gives you clean ball, you have to be wary about moving offside and moving ahead of that ball carrier and causing an obstruction. And also, there is so much momentum when you're kind of charging in behind that player and giving him support. You can very easily go off your feet. But this is a good example. Leinster did it right, they did it legally, and ultimately, 2 phases later, it led to a try.
Yeah, it does look like they're off their feet in that picture as well. That's the thing.
It's a screen. Yeah, but we all know that at some point players will kind of fall off their feet. Yeah. It's about whether you actually fly off your feet.
Yeah. As long as you're not a human torpedo, you generally get away with it.
Yeah, exactly. You will.
Okay. Right, England. Shades of Ireland in 2019. What's going on here?
Oh, big time. Look, we kind of spoke about their discipline last week. And
just want to say we're clearing the rest of the hour, and we're just going to go for 60 minutes on why English rugby is in the toilet that it is currently. Neil, the floor is yours. Take it away.
Well, obviously we spoke about their extraordinary penalty count last week, but it's funny just listening to the various rugby podcasts I kind of tune into. It is incredible. I just was thinking, God, I've heard all this before. All the things people were saying. It was just ringing in my head, going, God, this is a really familiar conversation and talking points that are coming up. But one aspect of it, look, the style of play, the ugly rugby and all the kicking is something that's been spoken of as well. But selection. If we think that we have conservative selection policies here in Irish rugby when it comes to trying players out, Eddie Jones is taking it to another level entirely. He seems completely oblivious to what's happening on a week-to-week basis in the Premiership. It's like he's a club manager who kind of has his squad and, he would literally have to sign a new player to bring him in. Like guys like Marcus Smith, Sam Simmons and Joe Simmons tearing it up every week in the Premiership, and they look further away from getting called into the squad than they ever have been. Now, this is based on Charlie Morgan in The Telegraph, who I know has been on OTBAM many times. He did a fascinating breakdown last week of Jones' use of players since he took charge in 2016. So the one that jumped out, now I hope you haven't seen this because I want to put the question to you. Eddie Jones has been in charge of England for 62 test matches. How many out halves have started a test match for him?
2?
4.
3.
Wow.
So in 62 matches, only 3 out halves have actually started a test match. But the worst thing about that is, obviously it's George Ford and Owen Farrell. The third one, Danny Cipriani, he only started 1 game.
Wow. And
so
Cipriani the thing that maybe it was like, because I heard a clip of him during the week talking about how much advice he gets on picking the team, and he really loves that advice. You could hear it. It was brilliant, right? It was like brilliant sarcasm that everybody kind of couldn't put. Do you think because Cipriani was such a bust when he picked him that he just decided, well, these guys clearly know nothing? That was his little bone thrown to the UK, the English rugby hacks, and that was it. It's like, no, I gave you Cipriani. What more do you want?
Yeah, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if that was this. Like, the breakdown is staggering. Like, 61 of his 62 test matches, he has either started with George Ford or Owen Farrell at number 10. If you look at Ireland in that period, we talk about Ireland and the lack of a succession plan we obviously have at out half. We've started 6 out halves over the course of that time.
Jack Carty, Sexton, Burns, Ross Byrne, Ian Madigan?
No, Paddy Jackson and Carberry.
Oh, Carberry.
But the counterpoint, obviously, Neil, is that Owen Farrell is 29 and there isn't the same sense of urgency at all.
100% that is there as well. But look, if one of those players gets a bad injury, all of a sudden you're in serious trouble. And
they play Italy and Georgia, you know. At some point, you got to try somebody new just to make sure.
Exactly, and they've had summer tours in. They had a summer tour in Argentina in 2017 when the Lions were away as well. George Ford started each of those tests over in Argentina.
Wow.
That's the point of that. You know so much about him already. But another part of it as well. This also went into the debuts. So Eddie Jones has given out 47 debuts in that time across his 62 caps. Ireland have given out 54 debuts in that time, so Ireland have given out 7 more as well. But crucially, the impact that those debutants are having on the team. 8 of the 47 debuts that Eddie Jones has given out since he took charge, only 8 of those players have amassed 20 or more caps. So the vast, vast majority are really getting in. They're not making an impact, and they're being cast aside again because he's happy with what he has. If you look at Ireland, of the 54 players that they've tried out since the 2015 Rugby World Cup, by Sunday, I'm assuming Jack Byrne is going to play this Sunday, so that will make it 13 of the 54 players will have hit the 20 cap mark. So it's clearly obvious that Ireland are have tried out more players than England over the last few years, and more of those players have actually made a bit of an impact.
And we are definitely conservative when it comes to this stuff as well. So
and I'm not saying all this to try and make Ireland look like these gunslingers that'll try out anything. Like, we are the conservative mark by any metric, most people would say, and England are far below it.
Very quickly, Champions Cup and Challenge Cup draws today. 2 home games for Leinster and Munster in the round of last 16. So what level of opposition should we expect for them?
Tricky opposition, because the way they've split it up, that teams cannot draw another side from their own domestic competition. So Munster and Leinster, they are either going to be playing French or English opposition. Now, granted, they are going to have home advantage for it, but the teams they are likely to face any one of La Rochelle, Toulon, Sale Sharks, Lyon, Toulouse, Clermont-Auvergne, Bristol, Exeter or Gloucester. There aren't too many gimmies in that pile. Like, you look at Gloucester, maybe are struggling in the Premiership at the moment. The rest of them, it's a pretty tough set of fixtures. Racing 92, Wasps and Bordeaux are the only French or English clubs that they can't draw, because those 3 sides are also guaranteed home advantage because they won their 2 games on the pitch. But you Scarlets and Edinburgh are the other 2 teams that make up the draw. Unfortunately, Munster and Leinster, they'd probably prefer to be playing one of them that they're more familiar with and have beaten many times down the years, but they won't be able to face them. Interesting. I am interested to see the Challenge Cup as well, because it's probably something we don't cover too much, but there are quite a few decent teams in it with the way the competition had to be broken down. And obviously we have 2 sides in it at the moment in Connacht and Ulster. So
and both playing really well as well. Like, I thought Connacht were brilliant against Munster in parts. Very quickly, we're completely out of time. The Lions Watch, we didn't get to do this last week. What are your current thoughts about the makeup and how it's going to go?
I think this weekend it's all about looking out at Welsh players, taking on Italy, a chance for them after a few tough games to really, really flex the muscles and show off a little bit to Warren Gatland, who obviously knows them well enough anyway as it is. But like Callum Sheedy coming off the bench against England last time around, he was absolutely brilliant. Louis Rees-Zammit was someone we'd wanted to talk about last week but didn't get round to. He is electric, and I think at this stage, barring a disaster, he's probably on the plane as well. With England, it's probably more players who aren't in the English squad that are probably making an impact for Lions at the moment, like Sam Simmons and Marcus Smith. And I think then as well, Jack Byrne is a player a lot of people are going to be talking about over the next while. He's the informed player in Irish rugby, I think it's fair to say. And his versatility gives him, I think, every chance of being on the lines this summer.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And saving the union as well.
Oh yeah, well,
Phil
it's
Byrne
very important that we saved that union. I mean, maybe if the Lions were to be beaten and it was to result of who knows? I mean, we've already think that Meghan Markle's bringing down the monarchy. So big week for the monarchists and the unionists. 10 minutes past 9 this morning. Neil, good stuff. Thank you for joining us. Here's what's coming up on OTB Sports Radio. The Burn It Broken podcast with Tommy Bowe is live from noon. OTB Gold at 1 o'clock is the life and times of Johnny Kilban, an Achill man who went to Cleveland and became the longest serving boxing champion in the world. I think somebody beat him recently, but for the best part of a century. Dadcast from 3, a career retrospective interview with Owen Redden, who had a brilliant career, brilliant time with Wasps, and then, of course, sensational time with Leinster as well. OTB Gold, The Ascent by Barry Ryan, is the story of his book about Irish cycling. And tonight, Nora Stapleton and Emer O'Neill react to Sport Ireland's latest study on sport and teenage girls. Dan McDonnell and Louise Quinn are on the football show. That is the show this evening with Joe and the lads from 7 o'clock on Off the Ball on News Talk. If you want to get in touch with us this evening, this morning rather, we'd love to hear from you. 0879 180 180, and that's the number you can text us on. We're going to take a quick break with Phil Healy, who finished 4th and ran a personal best in the European Indoor 400 metre finals at the weekend, and our coach Shane McCormack.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
OTB. Bemused, I think, is probably how he feels in his head. Bemused to how they could go from where they were last season, 99 points, 67 games unbeaten at home, to a situation where they could be on the edge today of losing 6 games in a row at home.
OTB live commentary. Never miss the action right here on OTB Sports Radio. Keep up to date with the latest scores on the OTB Sports app. The OTB Sports app. Live score updates straight to your phone.
Get ready for the Cheltenham Festival with the Boyle Sports app, with a special offer guaranteed on every race, every day of the festival, plus extra places on each way bets over all 4 days. The Boyle Sports app has got you covered. Need to study up? Check out our Racing Post insights or watch our exclusive video previews with Cheltenham Gold Cup winning jockey Robbie Power. The Cheltenham Festival on the faster than ever Boyle Sports app. Boyle Sports. This is betting. Gamble responsibly. See gamblingcare.ie. 18 plus.
Tom Watson, you're welcome to Golf Weekly.
Hey, this is going to be fun.
Very happy to say European captain and, of course, 3-time major winner Padraig Carrington joins us.
Today's special guest on Golf Weekly is Lee Westwood.
Thanks very much. Yeah, I'm honoured and delighted.
Let's bring in Paul McGinley, who joins us now. Paul, you're very welcome.
Shane Lowry, how are you keeping?
I'm good, thanks, yeah. Well, I'm as good as I can be.
The biggest names in golf and Ireland's best golf podcast, Golf Weekly, now exclusively available on Patreon. Go to otbsports.com/Golf Weekly to sign up now.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
13 minutes past 9 this morning. I want to tell you, from this Thursday, the 11th of March, Golf Weekly is exclusively moving to Patreon. If you sign up, you'll get a podcast guaranteed every Thursday and extra episodes around the biggest tournaments of the year. There'll be interviews with golf's biggest names as well. You'll become an official friend of the pod. You'll be able to chat to the lads, Joe, Nathan, Peter and Fionn. You'll get invites to our golf days and you'll enjoy exclusive watch parties around the majors. There's also access to the chat function where you can chat with fellow friends of the pod exclusively during the tournaments. Get on to otbsports.com/Golf Weekly and sign up now for $3.99 a month, or just search Golf Weekly on patreon.com. The page is live now and it is on fire. So for just €1 a week, you can join the burgeoning community of friends of the pod. Now, it is, as I said, 13 minutes past 9. I'm delighted to join Phil Healy and Shane McCormack to the show this morning. Phil, congratulations and commiserations at the same time. You know, when the dust settles and you're home now, how do you actually feel about finishing 4th?
Look, I am delighted to finish 4th. I know some people will be disappointed to be so close to the medals, but I gave it everything and I walked off that track knowing I gave it everything, and I ran the quickest time that I've ever ran in my 3rd race in 36 hours. So I couldn't be happier with 4th.
That's the thing, isn't it? Like the rest of the world looks and we're all obsessed by medals, but actually if you do your very best, there's literally nothing else that you can do.
100%. And in Ireland, a lot of the time success is measured on if you bring home a medal or not. And like, there's some people out there in the Irish team did their best and they made the semi-final, and that's a medal to them. So no, like, there was nothing more that I could do. I produced the quickest time of my life on that championship final, which is not necessarily always going to happen in championship finals. So no, that, as I said, the fourth is a medal for me, and I'm looking forward to taking it on into the summer.
And here's the thing, it's okay to be disappointed that you didn't actually get one of the medals, at the same time to drive yourself on and to use that inspiration. So it's kind of, it's complicated enough.
100%, because I was so close to the medals. There's only 0.2 in it between fourth and third. So like, I'm still that little bit that will 100% drive me on to be in the medals and on the podium the next time. So 100%, there's so many takeaways from it. With arriving on that scene, being in contention with all these world-class athletes, but still just falling that little bit short to drive me on for the next championship.
Shane, what was your experience like screaming at the telly?
Wasn't good. I wouldn't like to relive it too many times. No, obviously it was an unbelievable experience, but the nerve side of it, being stuck in a sitting room and trying not to have my 2-year-old crying every time I was screaming at the television. She got sent to bed for the final. It was the safest option. So, but it was brilliant. I'm normally trackside or I'm with Phil. Like there hasn't been too many races where we haven't been together. So look, it was a different dynamic, but you know, maybe it's a dynamic that we have to look at going forward. Maybe I should stay away more often, you know.
What's that like for you then, Phil? Are you Skyping or Zooming kind of regularly during the week? What, like, how much do you rely on coaching in the middle of the actual event itself?
100%, and like, it was very different for me because Shane, like, this is in the 7 years that Shane has coached me, this is probably his 4th race that he's ever missed, and it was just a very different experience in general with COVID tests, with wearing a mask, and but I was onto Shane right up to when I went into the call room for the final. So we had everything discussed throughout the week, and he might as well have been there that we were in contact that much. But no, it was a different experience, but it was the same for everybody. And it's something that will probably be that way in future championships as well, with everything going on. So it was a good trial run for what's to come.
Phil, can I ask, when you talk about your personal best there, I presume all the training about that is about yourself and how you can get the very best out of you. At the same time, does there need to be a little bit of focus on how you're going to run the race tactically?
100%, and especially earlier in the heat in the semi-final, because it's all about getting that qualification. And I knew, say, in the heat that I had the Swiss girl outside me, and I knew she was going to take off hard, but I needed to be at the bell before her because she's about 6 foot tall. So like, trying to pass her on the bends is really, really hard. So times go out the window as such when it comes to a championship. It's needed for seeding going into the championship to get a good lane. But say when we came to that final, all the pressure was kind of off as such, because it was just like a new championship. It was a one-off race, and anything can happen. And I knew the girl inside me, again, that we were discussing with Shane beforehand, was going to go off really hard, because she has gone off really hard throughout her whole indoor season. So I had to be in contention at the bell, and we went through really quick. We did a 23.8 second split, which has been my quickest split ever in a race. But to be rewarded with a PB when it's a messy race, like I ran the second lap of the final in lane 2, I ran the last 50 meters in lane 4. So for me, there's great signs and great positive signs that I can take it on. If it was a clean race, that I can definitely lower that PB a lot more.
Do you know during the race how fast the split is for the first one? Like, is there a clock there that you kind of have a glance at, or is it just a sense that feels pretty fast?
In the heat, I could see, because I was at the bell first, and the clock does stop, so it's just a slight glance. But in the semi and in the final, I had no idea. It was just about getting to the bell in the best possible position that I could. But when I crossed the line, I knew it was going to be a quick time overall, and the times did take a while to come up. But just to see the 51.94 and the PB after it was extra sweet.
Shane, does your coaching change massively from not being there? Do you spend much more time focused on the opposition in a way, or would you have done that anyway?
No. Like, look, I think you just have to think on your feet, right? And I think Phil has experience now, you know, from having competed in 2 previous European indoors and a World Indoors. So I don't think it's a type of event, and it's not that indoors is you know, it's like it's a battle, right? And you have to. I think I heard Billy Welsh talk about how he trains boxers before, you know, that the end goal is a universal boxer, right? Somebody that can fight any style, any opponent, right? And I think indoor running is you have to prepare the athlete to be the universal athlete, and just be able to ultimately think on their feet, because you can plan, like, you know, you have the best laid plans, right, till you get that punch in the face, right? So, you know, I think the punch in the face for us the weekend was Jodie Williams in lane 1, but at the same time we knew that she was going to do that. She even said it on the bus in the way into the race in front of Phil, you know what I mean? So like you kind of know how it's going to pan out indoors. It's just going to be messy, you know.
Phil, I think the whole country knew that you were going to run a personal best when you left the piece of toast and his hand hanging and you didn't high-five him. We knew that you were in the zone at that point.
100%, because I was already called back when I was walking out because I didn't stay long enough at the camera, so there was no stopping me after that. But look, it was great to get the coverage back home, and it definitely gave everybody a lift, and it was a great job done by Rob, Derville and David in studio to promote the sport, because it's obviously a minority sport, so we definitely gained an awful lot of new fans over the weekend, which is great to see as well.
I think the madness of indoors is really compelling as a TV sport, and obviously it would be much better if there was you know, however many mad Polish people screaming at it, but that chaos that you're talking about, it is a contact sport. It's not supposed to be, but indoor running seems to be fairly vicious, loads of potential for stuff to go badly wrong, and at the end of it there's a mad dash. It's like the perfect TV sport in many ways.
100%, and it is really entertaining, and for the athlete no race is going to be the same. Like, it's different to outdoors, and anything can happen at the bell. Like, in 2019 at European Indoors, I was clipped from behind and the girl fell. In 2017 at European Indoors, they fell in front of me. So anything can happen. You just have to, like, run your own race at a certain point, but you're also conscious of everybody else around you. So it is different in that element to outdoors, but it definitely brings an entertainment factor for everyone watching.
Yeah, and Shane, how do you coach that? Is it like a little bit of MMA thrown into the mix from every 6 months or so?
Phil has a GA background from her early years, so that I said elbows up under the high ball, you know. So look, there is an element of sharpening the elbows at the bell, because that's where the contact does happen. So, you know, previous to the championships, we would have done a few sessions with Sophie Becker, who runs with the Dublin Track Club, coached by Jeremy Lyons, and Jeremy's good at covering all the bases, and some things that we would have worked on is Sophie and Phil running off together off the bend and coming into a little bit of minor contact and a little bit of disruption. Like, so it is something that you kind of have to plan and prepare for as well, you know.
And that's obviously completely different then from outdoor. Outdoor is pure speed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you have your own lane, and it's a little bit easier, and you can control your energy a little bit better. So somebody like Phil, her speed, you know, her 200-meter speed helps a lot in the first lap, whereas outdoor maybe she can hold back a little bit because it's not about getting in front of the bell. So it's polar opposites, really, you know.
I saw a photo on social media over the course of the weekend, Phil, of yourself and Orla Cronin as children. She won an All-Star at centre forward on the Camogie Team of the Year at the weekend. That's a great story. One I saw, like West Cork flying their flag high over the course of the weekend. Like, it's an unbelievable level of success from a small enough place.
100%, and Orla only lives down the road from me, and like, it was unbelievable to see that picture, a right throwback. But no, it's great, and the talent, and like I always keep saying it, like the talent that is in West Cork across all sports to the highest level, like, it's unbelievable to see it flying that flag at the national level and international level, and getting the recognition for it, and the work that Orla has put in as well. It's super to see that she was rewarded with her first All-Star. But it's great for the small village that we live in, and going to the same school and different things like that. I would have played camogie with Orla right up to when I was about 16. So it's great to see that West Cork was definitely trending for the weekend.
Shane mentioned that GA background. How good were you at camogie?
Oh, I think I'll leave it to the sprinting for now, but no, I did enjoy it the whole ways up, and I just had to focus on one sport when I did come to that age of 16, 17. So camogie was the one that was dropped, and I did do football and stuff as well along the way. But yeah, athletics took the focus because Joe, my sister, was doing it as well, so it was easier to keep that going, especially when we're both going to the same places for training and stuff like that.
Phil, I just wanted to ask you about that before we move on. I've heard you talk before about you want to enjoy your sport, particularly as a teenager, and there's a big piece on the radio show this evening about dropout rates in teenage girls and the studies that are going on at the moment. What's your advice to kids, and particularly to parents of kids who might be struggling to juggle sports or feeling a bit of pressure to perform in those sports? What kept you going? Why did you keep going back?
Look, and again, sport at that age, it's like if you don't win, it's like a failure. It's seen as a failure, and people need to move away from that mentality, because like when I was in athletics, I was told maybe it's not the sport for me, but I stuck with it, and I was never making finals. I was never winning anything, but I stuck with it, and like I've come a long way since. But if I listened to those that said maybe it's not the sport for me and I packed it in, I wouldn't have achieved what I have now. So it's about every kid needs to focus on what they enjoy, and not like their friends might be off doing something else, or saying to them, why are you doing this and why don't you do this? Focus on what you enjoy, and you don't have to win. If you enjoy it and do your best and improve in any way that you can do, knowing that you've given it your all, then you have to be happy within that. But it's great for kids to include sport in any way that they can, and if they have to pull it back slightly with schoolwork and different things like that, do so, but definitely have that balance in there to distract you at the same time. And it's an outlet for kids, and especially with the times that we're in, kids need any extra interaction and sport that they can get at the moment.
No, definitely. Really looking forward to hearing that piece tonight with Joe from 7 o'clock. Shane, I did want to talk to you. You mentioned the Phil's GA background. Your own GA background is fairly well established. You've worked with the tip hurlers, amongst others, at a very high level. I have this feeling that sprinting in Ireland is one of those things that we haven't yet quite woken up to at a mass level, that we haven't quite yet understood the impact of injecting speed training into all of the training sessions that everybody does at all levels would fairly radicalise the outcomes in our sports. Am I right about that?
Yeah, no, you're on the money. Yeah, 100%. But I do think it is happening. I do think there is a little bit of a mini revolution here. And look, not to go back on history, but at one point, we the Gaelic Athletic Association, athletics was a cornerstone of the GAA, and I think we did a lot more. We did a lot more sports across the board. Like everybody ran, everybody jumped, everybody. You know what I mean? We did the fundamentals, and we people grew up doing athletics and playing football and hurling. So I think the segregation, I think maybe has impacted the athletic development of our field-based sports players. Not across the board, you know what I mean? But I do think kids are maybe growing up within the GA now, and they haven't mastered those basic fundamentals of jumping and hopping, and we live in a world now where the kids don't jump off walls anymore. They're not climbing trees. It's very, we're a little bit cotton wool now. So yeah, no, I do. I think, but you can see it's happening. You can see that the counties are obviously going after it, and I was a very small cog in a big Tipperary wheel, which was a fantastic experience for me. But there's definitely is people are copping on that. Look, a faster player, how is that going to if you have a skillful hurler or a skillful footballer, how is not being that little bit quicker going to hurt?
Yeah, and the point is that anybody can actually learn to be faster.
Anybody, like at any age, right? Anybody. I've seen people come back from chronic injuries at 30. We worked with Ali Miller. Ali Miller was an unbelievable athlete. She was an unbelievable rugby player. She used to come down and do sessions with myself and Phil, I suppose, towards the latter end of her career, when she felt that maybe she was losing a little bit of that pace. She got it back, but then she went and had this unbelievable, double compound fracture of her leg, which should have really ended her career. But Ali being Ali said, I'm putting the head down, I'm coming back. And she nearly came back after that injury with, great rehab, obviously with her physio, the IRFU and all that. But she worked really hard at the fundamentals of running for that year. Came in with a limp and basically finished faster than she ever did, right? So anybody can get faster, yeah.
Is this something that we should be drumming into everybody, that let's teach our kids how to sprint? I
think we need to look, and we need to look at how can athletics and other sports work better together. Like it seems that, you know, when we talk about facilities, funding, you know, stuff that maybe isn't readily available in athletics but is in other sports, like there has to be crossover somewhere where sports can come together. And, you know, like there's a world of athletic coaches out there in Ireland, but look, as we all know, athletic coaches are volunteers. I'm a volunteer. I have a day job. I have a family. You know, like myself and Phil have gone on this journey, but a lot of it is sacrifice, and that's our choice. I'm not sitting here looking for, you know, I'm great or a pat on the back, like, but there's people, like, what happens to the next Phil Healy that comes along and the coach doesn't have the ability to do that. But so maybe there is some cohesion across sports and a come together in a partnership that can, you know, benefit not only the clubs, the field-based clubs, but also athletic coaches and athletic clubs.
It feels like that's the next step in the unlocking of the potential of all the people that, like, you know, there are going to be some sprinters, there are going to be some middle distance runners who will also be GAA players or rugby players or soccer players, and that everybody would benefit from a chat. Like, here, have you tried this? Or we learned this. Just the sharing of information.
Yeah, exactly. It's about partnerships. It's about mentorships. It's about communication. It's about, you know, not having walls up, like dropping the egos and just talking. You know what I mean? There's a lot, because there's a serious amount of bright minds out there. And at the end of the day, running is, you know, if you look at what the distance runners are doing in Ireland, like there's an endurance element to field-based sports. If you look at what the sprint coaches are doing, there's speed there. So, like, there's a lot of really, really smart minds out there that, you know, like, and there's plenty of clubs and some fantastic, like Phil came from an unbelievable club in Bandon that gave her the, you know, the tools and the grounding and the ability that when she hit 18 that she was ready for the next level. So that's probably you know, an element in athletics that is probably the grey area. It's that you're talking about participation and dropout rates. So the dropout rate kicks in big time at 18, 19, 20, and that's something in our sport I think that needs to be looked at, because, you know, that's where interventions are needed. That's where, like, Phil reached out to me at 18 off her own back.
Yeah.
You know, so that was Phil took control of her destiny in that way. And yeah, we had to go on our own journey. It's had ups and downs, but, you know, thankfully it's worked out for the most part, you know.
And Phil, speaking of that journey, what's next for you over the next couple of months as we all wait and hopefully build up to what we all hope will happen in August or July or whenever the Olympics do actually happen?
Yeah, so it's going to be a quick turnaround now, and we go back into a training block, and it'll be outdoor season before we know it, and hopefully that we potentially have world relays at the start of May, and then it'll be just kicking off individually again. But qualification for Olympics ends at the end of June. At the moment, I am qualified in the 200 for Tokyo. I'm ranked 29th out of the top 56 in the world, so I just need to secure that position and hopefully lower it further. And we're definitely going to try and qualify for the 400 for Tokyo as well. They don't clash over there, so when it's a possibility, why not go after it? And the qualification process takes your aggregate of your 5 best times, and the 2 performances from this indoor season will really stand to me in terms of bonus points and just quick time. So indoor points carry a big weighting, so that will be really good to take into my ranking system, and hopefully get 3 quality races outdoor and take it on into a big summer with Tokyo as the final competition.
Well, listen, congratulations on your personal best of the weekend. Literally the whole country was watching, so it was great, and it's a brilliant start to the season for you. Thanks a million to both of you for being so generous with your time again this morning. Thanks a million. Great to talk to you both.
Thanks, folks.
Thanks a million.
It's Phil Healy and Shane McCormack there. OTBAM live in association with Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. We are live as always from 7:30 tomorrow morning. We'll be talking Champions League, Six Nations and much more as well. Right now we're bringing you Keith Wood as we focus on Munster, Scotland and the Irish Bolters.
Would Munster prioritise Pro 14 final to win some silverware for the first time in a decade over a Heineken Champions Cup knockout round if one had to give, do you suspect?
That's a great question. I think if you're in a final, you have to try and put out your best team for it. I think Leinster have an opportunity of putting out not exactly 2 teams. Well, they had 2 teams, they had a totally different team at the weekend, so they have that capacity to be able to do it. Munster don't. Munster still need a chunk of players back, but I think they'll be close. I think it'll be close enough to full strength from a Munster perspective. I think you have to go all out to win a trophy. You really do, and I'm not saying that it's less important for Leinster, because it isn't. Their intention is always to win trophies, and they've won a lot lately. So they may be able to blood more players to playing in cup finals than Munster can. It becomes an interesting conversation and a view on the strength and depth of squads.
The fact is, Leinster are looking for a 4th. in a row. So at the weekend, they beat Ulster by 38 points to 19. The interesting talk after this game, aside from Leinster winning again, and even, you know, with 15 internationals missing, was about the refereeing of the game. So in this game, we had 1 red card, we had 5 yellows, we had nearly 30 penalties. Dan McFarlane said afterwards, I'm going to have to discuss the game with Craig Garner, the referee's manager. Leo Cullen made the point. He said clearly the game has been refereed very, very differently from what it would have been even last year. I was surprised to see some of the cards. I'll go back and go through the channels that we usually go through. So what we have here are 2 coaches saying, we're going to talk with Greg Garner, and get a feel for what's going on here, because to use Cullen's words, it's different even a year ago. We had Devon Toner with a high arm on Michael Lowry, that was a yellow. Jimmy O'Brien head-on-head with Ian Manigan, possibly red, that one. Stuart McCluskey stopped a Scott Penny pass, that was a yellow. The red was for Andrew Warwick, which was a forearm fend off on Ed Byrne, towards the neck of Ed Byrne. Warwick, you could argue maybe trying to defend himself, but he got a red card nonetheless. What were your thoughts on, broad terms, the points of Cullen and McFarland, and any of the specifics if you felt one of those cards was way wrong?
Yeah, okay, well, that's a big, there's a big list to go through. We won't go through them all as a list, right? So I come from the perspective that the game is changing and has to change. I believe that the height of the tackle has to go down lower. I think that is something that's essential to the game for the safety of the players going forward. I think it puts pressure on the players. I think it puts pressure on the coaches. Both coaches' response to it is that it's changed from last year. Yes, it has changed. And a few other things have changed too. And I looked at it, I thought Jimmy O'Brien's was definitely a red card. And I think we need to try and get rid of all contact with the head. We have to. And until such time as, even when different things happen, you have to be in a position to tackle down lower and not to try and tackle across the chest to stop the ball. And I have sympathy at times close to the line, because by you tackling high, you can stop the guy getting the ball down. But something has to be done, because there are too many contacts with the head. There was a huge number of contacts with the head. For Warwick, when I saw it first, I thought it was a red card. I thought leading arm, red card. When I went back to look at it, I thought there was enough of doubt as in to say, yes, he led with the arm, and that's a penalty. Yes, and that's definitely a yellow card anyway, leading with the forearm in that fashion. It was where the point of contact of it was, and how aggressive that point of contact was. And I don't think that was quite as clear cut as some of the others. But for all the rest of them, I would have said, yeah, there are yellow cards. Like Devon, all you can do is feel sympathy for a giant. Tackling the smallest guy in the field, but you have to say to him, we used to do a thing with Willie Anderson, and I know this is like old, silly kind of middle-aged talk back in our day, but Willie Anderson would have it, if you were hitting a ruck, you'd touch the ground about a metre beforehand. That meant you were in the right position to hit it properly. And it was now this is for training, this wasn't for in matches, but the idea of your position for tackling was the exact same, which is you're in that position where you can make a good, hard, strong and aggressive tackle. So if I give an example from a game that we wouldn't normally talk about, Quins played Northampton in a crazy game of rugby yesterday, and I really enjoyed it because it was fantastic, even though some of the tackling was pretty much non-existent. But Marcus Smith, who people are touting to play for England, he's a really fantastic, exciting young 10. His way of tackling was he rushed at a ferocious rate up and tackled on the side, because he's a small guy. His tackling was incredible, technically phenomenal, and very few people managed to get an offload against him and the whole thing. And now I know it isn't just about changing it all to that, but there has to be changes made, because if they're going to keep giving yellow cards and red cards for the safety reasons for the game, and the game needs to be safer. Everybody's complaining about it. I looked at all of them with a cold eye get your contact level down, and then life becomes an awful lot easier. But yeah,
we're in the readjustment phase, aren't we? It's a continuation of the Six Nation red cards here.
Yeah, we are, and I think we're struggling, and I also think the coaches are struggling. It's funny, I remember having a bit of an issue with Joe Schmidt over it. He was a huge proponent of the stand-up tackle because it worked. But if you're trying to get the height down and you're tackling that way, you're more likely to get a bang in the face yourself. And if you make contact with somebody else's head, and the onus is actually on the tackler. So that's the way that's the way it's reffed. Whether the law fits exactly to that or not, I don't know. But that's the way that's the way it's set up. So you just have to go lower. Otherwise, you're 10 and nobody wants to see guys going off into the bin. Now, it does ruin the game. It does make it very difficult. I will say though, for the game, I think Leinster had so much in their locker if they needed to turn it on again. To score, I just thought that their energy level in that game was fantastic, and I thought an awful lot of what Ulster did was fantastic. I thought Ulster's discipline let them down. I thought Stuart McCluskey, when the yellow card, giving away the penalties close to the line, I thought some of those were just needless. You're better off letting them score. Like, there's no point in giving away a yellow card at the moment. It just puts the team under huge pressure.
17 penalties conceded, just can't do that.
Well, that's it. You can't do that. So you're looking at that and you're saying, God, there's 17 penalties. It must have been awful. It wasn't awful. There was a lot of excitement in it. It was great to see Balakoon back on the field. He looking sharp. I mean, I know Stockdale has been brought back into the Ireland squad, but it can't be long before his opposite winger comes back on or gets a chance, because he just looks so unbelievably powerful and sharp.
Well, that was the next question. And if people are saying, Balakoon, yeah, no, you're fine. He made such an impression. He burst on the scene. He has his sevens background, and then people might be thinking, I've just lost track of Balakoon. He had one of those awful... Avulsion is the technical term. We would know it from the Paul O'Connell World Cup hamstring comes off the bone moment. He had one of those, Balakoon, and it happened in a training match, a practice match, so people didn't see it. And in effect, he's been out for an entire year. So he came back, and so you're saying look sharp, because I was going to ask you, this guy is a test winger for Ireland down the line, is he?
For me, he is all day. I mean, avulsion is almost onomatopoeic. It sounds like a disgusting word. Yes, that obviously can't be good. It's a horrible injury, and he's come back. And I thought, sometimes you can come back and you're older. When you get injured young and you're older and you've put extra work in, he looked powerful. Right. So before, I thought he looked elusive and fast. I thought at the weekend he looked powerful, and for the try that he scored and the disallowed try, it was a pretty fantastic play. So I hope we have a summer tour, and I hope he goes on it, and I hope we get to see him in a green jersey pretty soon, because he's very exciting.
Okay, very good. Last word on that game. Ulster then bow out of the Pro 14. Where are they? Are they still a team that are making steady progress?
I think they have made progress. It'll be interesting to see how they get on without Marcel Coetzee, because he has been look, he was injured for a lot, and they really suffered when he was injured, because they're a different team, and yet they got bullied in the pack in the match at the weekend, and that's where they suffered scrum after scrum after scrum. I thought they were under pressure a lot of the time, but there's a lot to be. They're exciting to watch. I'm very entertained by Lowry. I don't know what to make of him, because he's very small, but he's very quick, and he has a bit of a cut, and there's a bit of freedom to Ulster in the manner in which they play and go about the game. They're playing the best team in the Pro 14 at the weekend. I know it wasn't their top players, but they're players that are playing with a structure and a style and a standard and a capability that is just at a higher level, and they struggle with it, and so they suffered with it. I think they're moving in the right place. I think they need a little bit more strength and depth in their pack.
Okay. Meanwhile, for Leinster, that's 32 of 33 matches won now. That blip against Connacht has certainly not morphed into something more serious. I think we can say that much. Munster beat Connacht 20 points to 17. Joey Carbery again off the bench, kicked 68th minute penalty. So that's big for Munster in a sense, because there was a touch of the semi-final about this. I know they would have had subsequent chances if they hadn't beaten Connacht to make the final. But there was a semi-final feel, and Johan van Graan and Billy Haaland even afterwards said, we did treat this as a semi-final, and they've had their semi-final woes. A quick early word on Carbery. Two things. One, does he look like a fella holding himself and minding himself, as you might expect after a long injury? And secondly, how's he just playing?
I think he's playing fine. And I don't think he's easing himself back in. I think he took it a bit flatter than you'd expect. I think that everybody's just crossing every part of their anatomy, for him. They just want him to be fine and want him to be good from an Irish perspective and a Munster perspective, and on a personal perspective. He was written off. Yeah. I think nearly all of us had him written off, and again he came back. He's come back a little bit, not bigger, but he looks stronger, if that makes any sense. What I love is when he's kicked, he stroked the ball over. It's quite natural, I think he's a class player. I really do. For me, he's a player that is exciting to see. He has a different non-Irish type of style. There's a bit of a freedom to him. I would want him on the field at every available opportunity, and I'm kind of curtailing my own interest in seeing him play, just to make certain that he is able to get over all these matches. And I don't think it'll be too long before he gets a chance to play and start, and then see what that's like for him. But I'm trying to look at him as a young player, not as a guy that we're trying to rush back into a green jersey. I think we need to make certain that he's looked after, same as we do for any young player, and he still is young. He's just been out injured pretty much for a year and a half.
Johan van Graan said of the win against Connacht, not our best performance by a long way, but it's job done. And they have the games against Scarlets, and I think it's Bennett on while the Six Nations is happening. So then suddenly Munster will find themselves in a Pro 14 final and Heineken Champions Cup knockout stages. So how, the body of work that's been done, say, over the last 4 or 5 months, how are they prepared for all that now? I mean, the general consensus is they're improving at a decent rate, and we maybe saw a glimpse of the gap closing against Leinster at Thomond, but we're heading into business end now, the real litmus test.
Yeah, it's hard at times to criticise because they're in a final, and but I thought they were poor at the weekend. I think Damien Diolande gets criticism, and yet when he's not playing on the field, I think defensively Munster look quite off the pace. Right. In the back line, I think he is incredibly important to them. That was a really good back line, a young 9 and 10, and they struggled a little, and Casey got blocked down a few times. You go from huge highs of playing your first international to then playing and getting blocked down. How dare they? Do you not know who he is? You know what I mean? But I would have said that the pack wasn't looking after that ball enough, and I think he needs to work on his box kicking. And I don't ever want to hear myself say that again, because I don't really want him to box kick at all. I don't think it's particularly natural for him, and I think he has a bit of a delay on the time, and I don't think he's ever practiced it in his life. I'm sure he's having to do so now. I like to see the zip of the pass. I think Healy had some ups and downs with the game. He missed a couple of kicks, but that's fine. They're young. They're going to do all those sort of things, and Munster won the game at the end of it. Some people were kind of giving him criticism. Why are these guys being mentioned at all? Well, they're being mentioned because they're young and they're good, and young guys are going to make mistakes, and they did. So I thought Munster were only-ish. I thought Mike Haley had a fantastic individual try, and it required that, because I still thought Munster were doing too much of just the one-out stuff. Their line-out struggled. Niall Scannell had a bad day. I thought his throws were incredibly flat, and he struggled, and he got plucked 3 or 4 times by Thornbury, who was excellent. Connacht will rue the day because they were very, very close for an awful lot of it, and they played a better style of rugby, but they didn't play a winning style of rugby.
If you're just tuning in, Keith Wood is with us. Rugby and Off the Ball is with thanks to Vodafone, official sponsors of the Irish rugby team. Team of us, everyone in. Let's get a word from you on the Six Nations round 4, which is upon us very soon. Murrayfield is the destination for Ireland. So look, Ireland, even with a so-so year last year, still managed to beat Scotland twice. Admittedly, both games in Dublin. There was the Stuart Hogg failing to ground the ball one last February, and then there was the autumn, which was a 31-16 comprehensive win. This was after the Georgia performance, you remember, and there was a sense of this was almost a referendum on where is Farrell and where are Ireland, and Ireland won that game comfortably. So Scotland beat England at Twickenham, looked brilliant. Lose to Wales, Xander Fagerson notwithstanding, and again there's a certain volatility about what Scotland will produce. So what are they going to produce on Sunday?
My expectation is that we're up against it on Sunday. So we haven't lit the world on fire. I know everybody talked about Italy, and I have to say I still think the reaction to people after the Italian game was far too over the top.
Did you? Because even I was surprised when Stuart Barnes joined us last week, or was it Wednesday? It's hard to keep track of the days. And I fully expected him to say, would you both calm down, Italy? Will you stop? It was irrelevant. And actually he said he saw genuine stuff there, Italy notwithstanding.
Yeah, but there was genuine stuff because Ireland had time, and with time, Ireland can do an awful lot of things. They're good players. They're just when the confidence is down and you've no time, life becomes incredibly difficult. When that was a game at a perfect time for Ireland in their confidence level. So what have they learned from that? What can they bring to this game at the weekend? And when they bring it to the weekend, and they are going to be under an awful lot more pressure, and Scotland, it'll be like a dogfight. We beat them well last year. I don't think did they have Duncan Weir at 10 for that game?
Yes, I think they did.
Is my memory? I thought both Hastings and Russell were out.
I think Hastings might have started in Dublin in February, but again, don't quote me on that. What we do know is Finn Russell's back for sure.
Yeah, and even though Finn Russell is kind of barking mad, he's brilliant barking mad, so he can do extraordinary things. So he thinks his way around the pitch, or not. He reacts his way around the pitch. So that makes it quite difficult to stick to. But just the manner in which some of the Scottish forwards have been playing is at a higher standard than they have. So I think it's a really tough game for us, and I think it's one of those huge, big pressure games. And in many respects, for Scotland's perspective, I'm so disappointed that they lost against Wales, because they have been knocking at the door, not really at all, for 20 years. They won the last 5. They're the 5 Nations champions from 1999. They haven't had a sniff ever since. So I think they had a really good chance. I still think they do have a good chance. But they need to win everything. And one thing we will say for the last few years is when the big pressures come on, Scotland have done something silly, not putting the ball down, getting a red card for a silly clear out. It's a lot of decisions there are being made by the referee and not by the players at the moment. So if they keep if they keep their game sensible, they can be really potent. It's just about getting their confidence tied into a performance and then a result for Scotland.
Yeah.
They haven't done that consistently, but I think they're capable of doing nearly anything.
Yeah, their best stuff has certainly been very, very good. A few thoughts from you on some selection dilemmas, I suppose, and these are these are good problems actually, really, as opposed to crises. So Stockdale's back in the squad. Stockdale versus Lowe and Larmour versus Earls.
Yeah, they're two interesting ones. You've skipped over Hugo Keenan, and you've said he's automatically playing 15.
Yeah.
Which I would as well. I think he is the 15. Larmour, Earls. I think having Larmour playing and Earls on the bench, or vice versa, I'm not sure yet. I don't think any of our wings are on fire, and I did like to see Earl scoring the other day. I'm a fan of his. But I think you can give or take either of the two of those. I don't know that Stockdale automatically comes back in over Lowe. There's both question marks over their defence. If their defensive glitches have been worked out, they're both incredible players. So it's funny, for me, I don't mind any which way you go for it. Of course, I go for Earlsey because I know him, but and I think he's a class act. But whatever players we have, I'd rather see them involved in the game far more. And the only one who gets involved more is Lowe. Yeah. And that is more taking the ball up instead of Johnny Sexton on a short little thing, which I'm not a big fan of either. I'd like him sneaking down a line somewhere at full tilt in off 9 or 10 on a totally different angle. I'd like to see them involved a little bit more.
Alan,
I haven't answered your question.
You've dodged it beautifully. Keith Earls, because he's from Munster, and then I'm not bothered about the rest. That was what I heard.
Yeah, look, I'll get criticism. I'll take that. That's not the worst thing in the world. Yeah.
Well, a fellow Munsterman, Alan Quinlan, said he probably on balance wouldn't start Conor Murray on Sunday. Gibson Park has done enough, and obviously there's Craig Casey floating around there. Well, seeing he's not here now, you bought what Stuart Barnes was saying last week about, in effect, if people missed it, they can go back and have a watch of Stuart Barnes with Keith last week. But he said really the Murray-Sexton combination for him these days, at the age that maybe Sexton in particular is at, he's not sure that's the right chemistry, the right balance. He much prefers a runner in there like Gibson Park to take some of the attention off Johnny. Do you pretty much agree with that, did you, from memory?
Yeah, I went quiet on it actually because it was an interesting thought, and look, I don't think Conor has been the same since he got injured, and I don't think he is a running threat anywhere near as much as he was before he got injured. So for that reason, I agree that they ignore 9 and 10, and I've said that for quite a while. Yeah. When we have Johnny and Sexton, they're putting all their focus on 12-13, which cuts down a lot of space that we have on the outside, if there's any space. I get that, but I thought I thought Gibson Park was given a bit of a armchair ride the last time, and I don't know. Again, look, you have to make changes at some stage, and you have to decide what it is you want to go and do. You have to decide that you're going to have Johnny at 10 or not at 10, or he's playing there, or you're going to have to make a change somewhere else. And I'm not saying that Gibson Park is absolutely the answer, and I think it's too early yet for Craig Casey. So I think there's a lot of competition around it. I want to answer that question. It's funny. Do I think that we have to have 9 and 10 Conor Murray and Sexton? No, I don't. And I think it is. I'd rather see Conor back fully fit, and maybe he doesn't get back fully fit, but I know that he has a huge amount to offer. He is a little bit younger than Johnny. Does he have a lot to offer for longer, or is Johnny that important that is the case, that we have to keep him there? For me, I'd be looking at both of them and saying it could be unlikely that they'll both play in a World Cup. So at some stage, where are we making the changes? When is that going to happen? And do we wait until the very last moment before we do it and we go in undercooked? So it's hard that as a conversation, and fans get really annoyed with that because they say, well, we're not going to win this Six Nations. Why don't we make wholesale changes? Well, the game is hemorrhaging money, and the further up that you end up in a Six Nations can be worth a huge amount of money to you and can help save the game a little bit more. Yeah. So that can be part and parcel of it. That's like, we're pretty much funded by the Six Nations competition. That is the big one for us, that and the home autumn matches. And if we can win those, it makes it an awful lot better for us.
There's a couple of other selection questions in the pack, but the clock's against me, and frankly we'll find out the team soon enough. But the front row and the back row are kind of interesting. But before you do go, Stephen Jones yesterday in the Sunday Times, it was on the front page of their sports section, he said that effectively now we're looking at a home tour. South Africa will play 4 test matches in the 4 capital cities come the summertime. Westminster have given the home tour their backing. The only hitch will be approval from Dublin, which we can probably expect. And then I'm presuming fans will certainly be at the UK matches, whatever about here. I mean, there's going to be 10,000 fans at Premier League matches in May. So I would think by June, July territory, that'll be up again. It's kind of funny, you know, I hadn't given it too much thought over the last couple of months, and then suddenly when I saw it yesterday in black and white, the home tour, this is what's happening, I thought, oh, I actually wish now they'd postponed it a year, because so we're saying another 12 years to a South African tour. I mean, so 24 years will have gone by from 09. Just doesn't seem like the way to do it at all.
And again, I'm conflicted on this, just in terms of that I'd like to see the Lions play. I don't think the Lions is a team to be playing at home. It's a touring side. I would have delayed it by 4 years, because if you delay it by just 1 year, it causes a huge amount of additional confusion to other parts of the game. I would have just pushed the whole schedule back 4 years, and I think that would be the best one to do it. Commercial concerns could mean that the Lions would have to pay back money that they probably don't have. They only make money in this period of time. They don't ever hold on to a huge amount of money. If this is the next best option or the only other option, maybe again for financial reasons it has to happen. But for me, I would have pushed the whole thing back 4 years.
That's more akin to a cancellation, some people would say, wouldn't they?
Well, I think we've been trying to fit in every single bit of sport on the most extraordinary, after the most extraordinary 12 months of all our existence. You know, like, nothing is normal. And yet we try to say, well, yes, but we can factor every single thing in. I'm not so sure about that. And I love the Lions. So I want to see the Lions play. And if the Lions play here, yeah, we'll watch them. And maybe that's necessary. That's the other point. Maybe it absolutely has to happen to keep it in the schedule, or what would be the ramifications if it isn't. And maybe it just absolutely has to be there. It's a pale version of what the Lions is usually, but maybe that's what we have to have, and maybe we have to accept that.
Yes, no, we do. And look, come those 4 Saturdays in June or July, and not least, maybe we all try and get tickets for the one in Dublin on a sunny day. There'll be worse things to do, so it's not disastrous either, for sure.
Absolutely.
Listen, thanks so much, Keith. We'll talk to you again.
Pleasure. Cheers, Joe.
See ya.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.